We take you live to the primary election in New York City as Democrats select the party's nominee for the mayor's race. You're watching live election night coverage on CSPAN2.
Now closed around the 5 boroughs. You're going to see results very soon at the bottom of your screen. But remember, the results that you see will be the first choice votes, especially in the race for mayor. If no candidate gets 50% tonight, we'll have to wait a full week before the Board of Elections runs ranked choice voting tabulations. As we start up our election ticker, you're going to see on your screen that the Associated Press uses a number that is called expected vote as the ballots are counted. Now, that number is based on turnout in recent elections. Shortly after 9, the results of early voting and most absentee votes will be released, and you'll see those votes very quickly on your screen. There's typically a short lag between the count of early votes and the count of ballots that have been cast today. Also, as a reminder, absentee ballots can be postmarked as late as today, so there will be a few outstanding absentee votes to be counted after tonight, which could matter in a race that is very close. As we wait for the results to come in, let's quickly check in with the top 2 mayoral campaigns, starting with Bernadette Hogan at the Zohran Mamdani campaign in Long Island City. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. That's right. Polls just closed at the Mamdani campaign. We have not seen the candidate yet, but I am here with City Councilman Chi Osei. He represents District 36, Bed-Stuy, and you were at a couple of poll sites today trying to get out the vote for Zohran Mamdani. Talk to me about the people that you spoke with, and what was your pitch to them?
Absolutely. So Bed-Stuy is a neighborhood that's seeing a lot of change, both gentrifying as well as a very established black homeowner voter base. And I posted up at a site where a lot of the traditional black residents go to vote, and I saw that in my election 4 years ago, and I was shocked to see that it wasn't even a mix of feelings around Mamdani or Cuomo. There was a lot of support for Assemblymember Mamdani at this poll site.
And you also were one of the youngest elected to the City Council at age 23. Was there any concern from any of these voters about his alleged inexperience, his only 2 terms in the State Assembly?
That was not brought up once at these poll sites. You know, there was one reference around defund the police, but that was the only thing that I heard as a concern from these voters. And as soon as, myself or one of the other canvassers pushed back about that claim, that voter was easily persuaded to voting for Mamdani.
Right, and talk to me about Andrew Cuomo, because he does poll the best amongst black voters. Why do you think that is, and why do you think that was a different story when you talked to those voters earlier today in Bed-Stuy?
Absolutely. Well, I think a lot of older voters, a lot of older black voters have heard the Cuomo name for some time now, not only through Andrew Cuomo, but Mario Cuomo. And during this race, I think they wanted to vote for a name that they recognize on the ballot, and that was Cuomo. But I think over the past couple of weeks, that's changed through the rigorous campaign that Mamdani has been running. His extremely well debate performance, as well as the ground game and reaching voters who have not been reached by the Cuomo campaign in person. I think that really changed the tides in terms of what I was witnessing on the ground at the poll sites today.
Now, regardless of the outcome, say Mamdani is not successful tonight, would you like to see him continue to go on? He does not have the Working Families Party line yet, but would you like to see the WFP consider or give it to him to go on into the general election?
Zohran Mamdani and his entire campaign team ran a masterclass type campaign this election season. I truly believe that they will win this election. I don't even want to talk about any other ballot line come in November. I do believe I will be casting a ballot or casting a vote for Zohran Mamdani on the Democratic ballot line come November.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilman. So, Errol, again, we're talking to Chi Osei, Democratic City Councilman from Bed-Stuy, saying that he was able to possibly turn a couple of voters in favor of Zohran Mamdani against Andrew Cuomo. Back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. We'll get back to you a little bit later. Right now, we're going to talk to our Bobby Kuza at the big board. As the results start to come in, he can start to sort of show us what we are seeing.
I mean, Errol, this is exactly what we talked about. We talked about this first tranche of numbers that we were going to get. It was going to be all the early vote and the mail-in votes that had been processed as of today, and we knew that those numbers were going to skew towards Zohran Mamdani. I mean, you heard our Bob Hart say earlier that this could be the high watermark for Zohran Mamdani, and sure enough, he's up by 7 points once those votes are processed. Now, we're going to see the day of votes, the ballots that were that were voted today, we're going to see those begin to roll in as well. But the initial numbers came in very strong for Zohran Mamdani, but that will probably change as the night goes on. As we've discussed, the day of votes tend to favor former Governor Andrew Cuomo. But right now, Zohran Mamdani with 43% to Andrew Cuomo's 34% and 13% for Brad Lander in third place. So I think we're going to get more data pretty quickly. By the way, Adrienne Adams, City Council Speaker, in fourth right now with just 4%, low single digits. I think over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, we're going to see the numbers really begin to climb, and then we'll get a better sense for where we might land at the end of the night.
Well, yeah, can we see some of the other candidates? Because this is, you know, almost like a sort of a capsule. This is the early vote, right? So how did some of the other candidates do in that early voting period?
Well, you know, I mean, clearly Brad Lander did himself some favors with everything that's happened in the past week, right? He got arrested at immigration court, became a national story. He had a pretty strong debate performance. He, you know, got the, not the endorsement per se, but, you know, he got a lot of support from this New York Times opinion panel. And he's at 13%, which is a little bit higher than he had been doing in some of those recent polls. So those are clearly the top three. There's some space between Brad Lander and Adrienne Adams in fourth place. Scott Stringer in fifth, just 2%, and then everybody else is down at about 1% or below. Zelnor Myrie, Whitney Tilson, Jessica Ramos, who effectively dropped her campaign, and Michael Blake with only about 1,400 votes total, looking at the raw vote total. So we talked about this being a two-man race, and that is really what it looks like it's going to come down to, although we should point out Brad Lander in third place. He's going to accumulate some votes, and assuming this then goes to a ranked choice tabulation a week from now, it's going to make a big difference who those Brad Lander voters ranked further down their ballot. If they had Mamdani ahead of Cuomo, those votes will then go to Mamdani once the tabulation is run. So, you know, a lot of moving pieces here with ranked choice voting. I think the better that Brad Lander does, the better it becomes for Zohran Mamdani tonight.
Okay, very interesting. I have Courtney Gross here with me in studio, and in some ways not a surprise, right, that Mamdani would do well, but it really sort of sets a marker, right? If he's 10 points ahead now, 9 to 10 points ahead, if he can maintain that throughout the rest of the count, that's the victory he's looking for.
He's certainly in a good position. We know that, like Bobby Kusu was saying, in polls that his voters were much more likely to vote early. And we've seen some really interesting analysis from WNYC and Gothamist, who's really broken down where this early vote was coming from. A lot of it coming from Brownstone, Brooklyn, which is obviously kind of Mamdani territory, including some analysis that showed of the early vote that came in, which was almost 400,000, which is almost double the amount that we saw in 2021, that a quarter of those early votes, which is what we're looking at now, were new voters, people who hadn't voted within the last decade, potentially, you know, new people who had just moved to New York City, or these young voters that we clearly saw came out who are interested in the Mamdani candidacy and are out there supporting him. It shows he's got some enthusiasm, he's got some grassroots support. I mean, we've heard the lines on the campaign trail for so long that they've knocked on 1 million doors, that they have 40,000 volunteers, and I think that this is what we're showing in these numbers. Will Cuomo be able to catch up? It's early. This is a percentage of the vote. You know, his voters are more likely to vote today, but I think what we've seen in Ayanna Harry's reporting, who's obviously covering Andrew Cuomo throughout the day, is that there was, my interpretation is, a little bit of a sense of urgency from the Cuomo campaign saying, it's hot out, please get out to vote. You know, he originally was going to vote early, and then he changed his whole schedule to vote on actual primary day to make sure and encourage his voters to get out there, even though it's obviously brutally hot out there.
Yeah, to this moment, actually, still in the 90s. Well, we've got a race to call. New York 1 is projecting Jumaane Williams as the winner of the Democratic primary election for public advocate. In some ways, Courtney, this wasn't all that much of a surprise, but it looks like it was an overwhelming victory. And in this kind of a case, there's no ranked choice tabulation if you're over 50%.
Yeah, so he is obviously in the clear here. Jennifer Raj Kumar was trying to challenge him, clearly a very close ally of Eric Adams. You know, we've detailed and documented over the many months leading up to this primary how often Jennifer Rajkumar was with Eric Adams at press conferences. Our other colleagues in the media have done the same. I wonder if some people might see this race in particular as some sort of litmus test on the Adams administration because Jennifer Rajkumar is clearly so close to the mayor. This was a race that many people didn't pay that much attention to. People thought that Jumaane Williams was clearly in a strong position, wasn't necessarily at risk of losing his seat.
Right, right. And so even with only what the Board of Elections says is about 14%, a little under 14% of the vote of the scanners having been fed in, that lead is so commanding when you're talking about over 274,000 votes for Jumaane Williams just in the early voting period. There's no way to catch up. Let's check in with our Ayanna Harry. She's at the West Village celebration for Andrew Cuomo. That's his campaign headquarters tonight. Ayanna, what is the latest there?
Yeah, Errol, this is not only the campaign headquarters for Andrew Cuomo, this is also the very room where Andrew Cuomo launched his campaign for mayor just about 4 months ago. Tonight is an opportunity for Andrew Cuomo to gather his supporters, the people who have endorsed him, the people who have campaigned and volunteered for him, to say thank you. And I have one of those people here tonight with us, State Senator Jessica Ramos. You were on the ballot today, the first woman in this race, but there was a point in a moment where you decided to endorse Andrew Cuomo. Walk me through what you were thinking at that point and why you felt it was so important to tell your supporters to now vote for Andrew Cuomo.
Well, for me, there was a clear point in time where the race came down to two people. That's just a very sober view of where we've been headed. And so I wanted to make a choice and a recommendation for my neighbors, for our communities, to be able to vote for a mayor that has experience, that, you know, we can know is going to be able to put together a good team and protect us from the attacks that we've already been getting from Washington, D.C., whether it's our immigrant population, whether it's the unlawful defunding of our education, of infrastructure projects. These are all critical things to New York's well-being and the progress that we should expect over the next 4 years. And between those two men, there's only one who we know can deliver on that work.
I want to talk about your neighbors in Elmhurst, Corona, Jackson Heights. How did the Cuomo campaign reach them? Did they do enough to reach those folks? And what are the key issues that matter to the people in your district?
You know, well, throughout this campaign, we've seen the Cuomo campaign really engage with Black and Latino voters and Asian voters. We want to make sure that there is ample opportunity for not only jobs, but careers. There's a reason we're at the Carpenters Union today. This has been a race always about tackling the affordability crisis, the climate crisis, the mental health crisis with good jobs, with union jobs. And so that, to me, has really been something that resonates with voters in my neighborhoods and across the 5 boroughs.
And you felt there was a visible presence from the Cuomo campaign in those neighborhoods?
I absolutely believe people were engaged. I saw clergy engaged with the campaign, our district leaders who are always out there doing the good unpaid work. That's important. And I think even though we may not know the final results tonight, I'm hopeful that the final results will be in our favor.
And what have you said to Jessica Ramos supporters who have been a bit disappointed by your decision to back Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah, no, I completely understand that people can be confused, can be disappointed. Some might not understand why. But to me, and I'll continue to have these conversations, I am happy to talk about why ultimately this was an important decision, keeping in mind everything that's happening in New York City right now. It was about him being the person at the right time, in the right place, at the right moment to protect New York from everything that Trump has been doing and what he's threatened to do.
Okay, State Senator Jessica Ramos, also a candidate in this Democratic primary race for mayor, but you have now supported Andrew Cuomo. We appreciate your time. And Daryl, again, we are here inside of the Carpenters Union Hall. The doors opened at about 9 p.m. We're seeing some campaign donors, campaign volunteers begin to trickle in. A lot more people expected in the room. They do have New York One on the TVs, and everyone here, they have been watching these results come in. there's a lot of anxiety in the room, but also a lot of anticipation. Errol?
Okay, so now, Ayanna, are the folks who are coming in, do they look like they were out working today, or are they just kind of showing up for the party?
No, these are the people who their work was through writing checks for the Cuomo campaign. So these are the people who have supported through donations, and they're getting an opportunity to say, you know, thank you. This is how Andrew Cuomo was saying thank you, giving them sort of the earliest access to the room. We expect the room to be filled with even more people within the coming hours.
Okay, we'll talk again a little bit later, Ayanna. Thank you. We have 2 races to call for you. New York 1 is projecting that Vanessa Gibson has won the Democratic primary election for Bronx Borough President. And New York 1 is also projecting that Antonio Reynoso has won the Democratic primary election for Brooklyn Borough President. I'm joined again by our Courtney Gross. No surprises there either. 2 incumbents kind of defeating some challengers who were, you know, themselves elected officials, and or I should say people who have run before, and put up pretty fierce challenges.
Yeah, particularly in the Bronx, Rafael Salamanca, the city councilman who's term limited, was facing off against Vanessa Gibson. You know, he declined to participate in a debate here on New York 1. Vanessa Gibson, I think, was running as if she certainly had a real race. Salamanca is well known, the land use chair at the city council. That's an incredibly powerful position, controls what projects get to go through and what projects don't get to go through. So obviously you're going to be close with developers and, you know, perhaps a lot of different neighborhoods all across the city. But clearly, you know, she came out ahead tonight. Not altogether surprising, but, you know, there's always, remember she was here not too long ago when Salamanca decided not to participate in our debate, and I was talking to her, and she's like, no matter who the competitor is, you always run like it's a real race.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to sort of try and change whatever somebody's strategy is, but we always encourage people to come in and debate. Like, you know, let people hear what your vision is. It can only help you, and we're sad that he didn't take advantage of that. Let's go to Bobby Kuza at the big board. He's got some information for us about the controller's race.
Yeah, we're taking a look at City Comptroller Mark Levine and Justin Brannan, the leading candidates in this one. Mark Levine right now with a pretty convincing lead, up 13 points on Justin Brannan. Not really a huge surprise. I mean, I think if you had to choose a favorite or a front runner in this race, it would have had to have been Mark Levine, the Manhattan Borough President, a relatively high-profile elected official. But Justin Brannan himself got a lot of support in this race, including from the progressive left. I mean, we saw him endorsed by the likes of Bernie Sanders and a number of other left-leaning advocacy groups and elected officials. And it seemed like maybe in the closing days and closing weeks of the race, he had begun to kind of narrow that gap. I mean, the only polling in this race came about a month ago, and I believe it had Mark Levine up by about 20 points. So compared to that, Justin Brannan has sort of narrowed the margin, but right now Mark Levine with a pretty comfortable lead in the early going of this race.
And there was another candidate in that race, right? Do you have numbers for Kevin Parker?
Yes, not to give Kevin Parker short shrift, but he's landed only down at 6%. He's a state senator from Brooklyn. He has run for office many times before, and some of the polling actually had showed him in the teens, but right now down at 6%. So he's in 4th place, actually, in this 4-man race.
Yeah, so the way people think, and I'm sure some of Brannan's supporters are thinking, it's like, well, look, if we've got some second-choice votes coming from those 2 other candidates, this could, in fact, be a close race by the time the numbers are all counted.
Right, and this is one of those races where we're not only going to be looking at the margin, we're going to be looking at how close this number is to 50%. Because if this race was over right now, obviously Mark Levine would have, you know, a significant lead, but with less than 50%. He couldn't announce he was the victor. This would have to wait until next Tuesday in ranked choice voting. And in theory, yeah, like you said, if all of Ismail Malave's votes and all of Kevin Parker's votes went to Brannan, which is unlikely, but it is, you know, a mathematically possible possibility, then in that case he could actually surpass Mark Levine. Of course, that's the way ranked choice works in theory, but in practice, it doesn't always mean you can make up that much ground. We saw it almost happen in the mayor's race 4 years ago with Eric Adams, but that may have been a little bit of an outlier. With this kind of lead, it's very hard for the 2nd or 3rd place finisher to make up that ground.
Got it. And while you're there, Bobby, could we look at some of the numbers for the borough president's races that we just called? We gave the sort of the top line number about who won, but I'm very curious as to what the percentages look like.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at Vanessa Gibson. So I got to say, this race I thought was going to be a lot closer because Rafael Salamanca, you know, relatively well-known city councilman from the South Bronx. He's being term limited out of office. So, you know, gunning for Vanessa Gibson, who is a relatively popular borough president. She's been a lawmaker in the Bronx for a long time. It's not that often that you see a sitting elected official like this, who's pretty well liked, actually being primaried by another prominent elected official. But Rafael Salamanca got a lot of money in this race. He had some endorsements, but in the end, Vanessa Gibson seems to be running away with this thing, not particularly close. And then in the other one we were looking at was in Brooklyn, Antonio Reynoso. Also, you know, didn't really seem as though he was going to have to sweat this race. Kari Edwards had some endorsements in this race. He had run for this office before, but Antonio Reynoso, a pretty well-regarded borough president, and you see here the difference is about 61 points. So Antonio Reynoso cruising to re-election in this one.
Okay, thanks very much, Bobby. We're going to go out in the field now to our Samantha Liebman, who's also been focused on the city controller's race. She's with Mark Levine's campaign in the West Village. Sam, what is the latest there?
Well, the mood is upbeat right now. People are just starting to trickle in to see the results. Of course, they're very happy right now that Mark Levine does have the early lead. This has been overshadowed by the mayor's race, of course. The controller's position, however, very important, especially in light of what is happening in Washington. And really, these two candidates, Mark Levine and Justin Brannan, have, yes, they're running against each other, but really they've been taking aim at President Trump, especially after the federal government clawed back that $80 million in reimbursements to help with the migrant crisis. So that has been a big factor in this race, but also how they are going to handle the city's pensions as well as other things, housing. They've been focusing on that as well. We spoke to Levine's campaign manager, Matt Rubin, about the campaign and what they've been focusing on since they are so similar in their policy positions.
At Stringer's campaign, where he is addressing some supporters. Let's listen in.
About how we were going to rise up together. And then all of those street corners that we all stood on and the subway stops that we did, it was always about people wanting to do better and accepting the best that we can be for each other. I believe to my core that public service is the most honorable profession. And when and through this campaign, what I've loved is watching the young people throughout the city campaigning for different candidates, not just for mayor, but for city council and controller and borough president, the young people who work for us, banging doors and campaigning every day. They represent the future of this city, and you know what they're saying? They want change, and they're not willing to wait, and neither should we. We should demand excellence again for our city, and that is why we are here tonight. Now, I have to just say, I've been with a lot of you for decades, and we've won some and we've lost some. But at the end of every campaign, we acknowledge that we just like this, and we're good at it. And that is what the West Side has always been to me, and that is what people in city government has always been to me. So I just want to say to all of you, better days are coming. Look, let me give you just a quick state of the race. So based on early returns, I'm going to need a late surge around 11 o'clock, okay? So will you stick around? But whoever ends up winning this primary, and we're probably not going to know tonight, we also have to recognize that once we have a mayor, a new mayor, we have to be part of this. So we all have to go back and do what we've always done. We have to organize on the most local level. We have to organize our friends and neighbors. You know what we're facing in Washington. You know what we're going to face as we constitute a new government in New York City. We have to be in this, all of us together. And let me tell you one thing. I ain't going anywhere. Many of you think that this long series that we've been on, this Netflix series, you may wonder whether we're getting canceled. But I'm telling you, watch the trailer coming soon. So I just want to say some personal things. First of all, you don't do a campaign by yourself. And while I can't acknowledge every single person in this room, many of you have been with me such a long time, you know in my heart I will over the coming weeks. But I do want to first start out recognizing my entire family. First, Max and Miles, who are not here tonight, but are watching on TV. Miles said to me, you know, Dad, this is my last campaign, and I said, then as I left the house tonight, he goes, we're not going to do this again, are we? I want to thank somebody who I just love her so much. And one of the great things we've enjoyed in this campaign is we've been traveling together on a regular basis, going to all the events, the house parties, the fundraising, the street corner stuff. I really do think the wrong person in our family runs for office. If we were smart, we would have just elected Elise and be done with it. But I am very, very lucky to have you, and I know that. And everyone here is thinking, yes, you're right. So, and I want to say, look, we were a small but mighty campaign staff, and I just want to thank the people on the ground who are with us every day. First and foremost, the person who inspired me to run and then literally left everything on the field, somebody who had to take her own personal attacks, sacrifice so much, somebody who I think Elise and I is right. She's just part of our family. Please acknowledge Elaine Fan for the amazing work she did. As our campaign chief of staff, she was in it every single day, and our chief advisor, John Liu. Where is John? Is he here? He has been an amazing. He has been amazing. I thank him. His advice has been incredible. I think I just want to say thank you. I also want to thank somebody who's been with me literally in public service for as long as I've been in elective office. I want to thank the person who really day to day just kept this campaign together. Please really congratulate Susanna Vickers for her amazing work. Our director of field operations, Dan Johnson, our deputy field director, Ryan Williams, Leah Carter, who managed the books. See you at the campaign finance board hearings. I want to thank Javier. And
former city controller Scott Stringer thanking his supporters. We're going to head out to Queens now. That's where the current city council speaker, Adrienne Adams, has her campaign headquarters, and our Kelly Mena is standing by. Kelly.
Hi, Errol. That's right. We're still waiting on the candidate to get here. The speaker, she should be here shortly. But we are joined by our top and most visible supporter, the Attorney General, Letitia James. I wanted to ask you, we're looking at those returns right now. You had some reactions to seeing Mamdani holding a lead in the beginning returns we're seeing. What's your initial reaction?
Well, I'm really surprised that he is winning in traditionally moderate communities, communities that can best be described as formerly Cuomo areas, Cuomo territory. So he's really doing good in central Brooklyn. He's doing good in parts of Manhattan, upper Manhattan. Cuomo is doing good on Staten Island and in parts of Queens. But the night is still young, but he is winning. And again, it really represents the excitement that I saw on the streets all throughout the city of New York, and I haven't seen this since Barack Obama ran for president of these United States, when the community in the streets was shut down all over the city with young people shouting for change. And that's what they want. Listen, just like those young people, and I'm not, obviously I'm a mature woman, I do not, and I reject fear. And there was a lot of fear politics that were injected into this race, and it's unfortunate. And what's so great about this is that New Yorkers rejected fear, and that we will not be divided. And I can assure everyone who is concerned about his platform, that I'm I'm going to do my very best to bring everyone together so that we all can be respected, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, or your religion. We're one New York, and we obviously need affordability in the city of New York, and we need individuals, obviously, who understand, who have lived experience. And as someone who grew up in Brooklyn, who came from a humble beginning, I'm going to make sure that whoever is the mayor of this city of New York understands that.
I wanted to ask you, are you excited because you substantiated 13 cases of sexual harassment against the ex-governor? You have been critical of his campaign. Do you think that it's important for him not to get back into office?
So, first, let me just go back and say this. Andrew Cuomo specifically requested that my office engage in an investigation. It was important to me that we do an independent investigation, which is why we hired outside counsel. Unfortunately, Andrew Cuomo didn't like the results. I guess he thought that somehow I was elected to go along with his politics. That's just not me. I was elected to represent the people of the state of New York. And so those 13 women who reported allegations of sexual harassment, of hostile work environment, of having their breasts touched, is something I can't forget. Because as so many young people enter politics, as so many young girls and young women like yourself who have become journalists, it's important that they understand that they are respected, that they're not objectified, and that they are more than just their gender, that they are professionals and should be treated as such.
And final question, there's some rumors that Adrienne Adams may be picked as a lieutenant governor. Your reaction to that?
It would be great to have Adrienne Adams run with me all throughout the state of New York, but I'm not sure that's her future. I think her future right now is to be with her family, and I'll leave that decision to her.
All right, thank you so much, Attorney General. Really appreciate it. You're hearing it right there from the top supporter that really pushed the Speaker, Adrienne Adams, to get into the race and why she is a primary candidate tonight. We'll hear from her a little bit later. Back to you, Errol.
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. And we've been looking at the numbers, Courtney Gross, I mean, we're over the 50% number, meaning more than half of the vote for mayor is in at this point. Yeah. What patterns are you seeing?
So we're going borough by borough. It just updated on my screen here, but you know, we're seeing Zohran Mamdani do well in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and in Queens, winning those boroughs. And obviously these are preliminary figures. They are subject to change, so there's all these asterisks and caveats when we talk about them. But it's interesting to me that he's winning those boroughs. Brooklyn, not surprising. He's always done really well. Mamdani in the polling has done really well in Brooklyn, so it's not surprising that he's winning that borough. But Manhattan is quite interesting to me, especially when you go and you dig into some of the more, the demographic data in some of these districts. I'm thinking about Harlem. That is a community. I was in Harlem with Andrew Cuomo a few weeks ago covering an endorsement by Governor David Patterson and the former assemblyman for that district, Keith Wright. And I'm looking at the assembly district for 71. And Zohran Mamdani has double the number of votes of Andrew Cuomo in that district. That to me shows that even though the polling has shown that perhaps Zohran Mamdani was not doing well with black voters and 50% of black voters were in Andrew Cuomo's camp, that maybe there was a demographic shift and there ended up being more black voters in Mamdani's camp. Of course, preliminary numbers, 50% still need to come in. Cuomo was doing very well on Staten Island, like we heard the Attorney General say, who's digging clearly into these numbers as we do as well. And he's doing well in the Bronx, which we've seen from the polling that is turning out to be the case.
Well, you know, as they say, it gets late early around here. The percentage of scanners at this point is over 2/3. If this is a basketball game, we'd be in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter. There's going to be a shrinking amount of time and a shrinking number of votes. And as you know, we knew that, and as we've told our audience, whoever gets to 50% first is the winner. So this lead that we've been looking at since the first numbers came in shortly after 9 shows Zohran Mamdani about 7 points away from 50% and victory. Andrew Cuomo, again, we're expecting numbers to come in for him, but when you say something like West Harlem going 2-1 for Mamdani, that is striking, and that is telling, and that could tell the story.
Yeah, originally, when we first got that first tranche of voters coming, or early votes coming in, there was a 10-point lead. Mamdani had 9 or 10 points, and now that's shrunk to about 8 points. But he's at 43.8% of the vote right now. And like you said, it just takes 50% plus 1. You know, we have about 40%, 30 Some odd percent of the vote still outstanding, so obviously we have to wait for that. But Mamdani is clearly in a very good position right now. And if I know anyone who is celebrating outside of Mamdani's campaign, which I'm sure Bernadette is at, but I assume Eric Adams is also celebrating tonight.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get back to the analysis of what comes next. But let's go out to Zohran Mamdani's headquarters. This is in Long Island City, and I think it's a brewery, so I think people are going to be happy no matter what. But Bernadette Hogan is there, and they've got good reason to be happy right now, right?
Hey there, Errol, and I'm with State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx, who is a Mamdani supporter. He also serves with him in the state legislature, although in the opposite chamber.
In the upper house.
In the upper house, correct. Now, you've been out with Mamdani on the campaign trail, and now we're seeing just in the early reporting that Mamdani looks like he's ahead of Andrew Cuomo. What do you think made a difference within the final days of this campaign?
The thing that made the difference in the final days of the campaign is the same thing that made the difference from the beginning of the campaign. This has been an incredibly well-run campaign. The message discipline has been, I mean, just second to none, because it has been a consistent thing. How do we connect with people's lives? How do we change people's lives? How do we make our city more affordable? That is a message that cuts across the board. And these are early numbers, but they're positive. And what I saw on the street today and the times that I've been out with Zohran, it is pandemonium. People are energized by his presence because he understands that the campaign is coming from a place of understanding what needs to change in New Yorkers' lives, and we're going to get into office and actually make it happen.
But Senator, that message of affordability, of creating more housing, is something that Governor Kathy Hochul talks about, and she is more of a moderate Democrat. Why do you think voters are turning to someone who's a member of the DSA and more on the left-leaning end, and he's only been in the state assembly for 2 terms?
I think it's just, listen, I think that the message has a lot to do with the messenger as well. I mean, affordability, I believe that a lot of the reasons why the governor started talking about affordability is because Zohran was talking about affordability. I mean, I think if you would have asked me at this time last year what this campaign was going to be about, the mayoral campaign, everybody would have probably said it's going to be about public safety. But the reality is that the narrative changed, but it only changed because I believe that the Zohran campaign actually connected with what is really the worry of people's everyday lives. So certainly public safety is a concern, but affordability is a longer-term concern that cuts across all boroughs, all demographics, and I think that the numbers are showing us that.
And affordability, part of his fiscal policy really would hinge on the legislature approving a tax on the wealthiest of New Yorkers, something that the governor herself had said, I'm not doing that, that's a non-starter. You are a supporter of that proposal. What do you think it will take now if Mamdani ends up winning and he's the mayor? What kind of action, what kind of course of action will he take? What do you recommend?
So let's talk 2 things. Back when Cuomo was governor, we got him to do things that he didn't want to do. We changed taxes on the wealthy. We did housing policy. We actually got the excluded workers fund. All of these things that he didn't want to do, but we got him to do it because we put enough pressure. Now, fast forward, the 50,000 plus volunteers that were out there in this type of weather, knocking on doors, talking to people. Do you think they're going to go away? No. We're going to ask those same New Yorkers, I want you to put the pressure now on the legislature, on the governor, because these are things that we need to do to change people's lives. I sincerely believe that we're going to take the energy that made this campaign a possibility, and we're going to take it right into the governing. Because remember, Zohran was an organizer before, he's an organizer now, and I believe he will be an organizer mayor as well.
And quickly, final thoughts. You were in the legislature when Andrew Cuomo was governor.
Yes, I was.
Talk to me, why do you think that issues like sexual harassment and his handling of the pandemic didn't appear to hit really with voters in the early days of the campaign, but we're hearing more and more of it? We saw some of the women who had accused him of sexual harassment appear with another campaign, Brad Lander. Do you think that message has resonated with voters?
This is the thing about Cuomo. Cuomo, I'll give him his credit. From a distance, he is good at pomp and circumstance, and he's good at looking like a good leader. But all you got to do is scratch beneath the surface. And what we did, what not only myself, but thousands of volunteers did around the city for months now, is we asked people to really ask themselves what Cuomo did when he was in office. And the reality is that there's so many things that Cuomo did in office that actually created the problems that he actually is saying that he's going to resolve. And he did all these things, and then when you do them, when you do that, when you remind people, there's a Zohran canvasser that called it the flippery quotient. 98% of the people that we talked to, that you actually explained to them, do you remember what Cuomo did? They go like, you know what? I can't vote for that guy. I can't vote for that jerk. Eventually they get there. So that's what we're talking about. From a distance, he looks good. But once you look closely at him and you look closely at his record, most New Yorkers will reject him. And I believe that's what we will see tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator, for your time. That was State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx, the 33rd District, who, again, he was the State Senate Health Committee chairman during COVID. He worked intimately with Andrew Cuomo, but he also works with Zohran Mamdani, who is in the State Assembly. Errol, back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Let's check in now with our Dan Rivoli. He's standing by at the campaign party in Park Slope for Brad Lander. Lander, of course, cross-endorsed with Mamdani late in the campaign, so in some ways this is good news for them as well. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Errol. The mood here is big, it's ebullient, and it's not because of the open bar. When I spoke to a Lander campaign official before the polls closed, they said they had two goals in this race: win the primary and prevent Andrew Cuomo from getting the Democratic nomination. And now with the polls, as they're counting the votes, they are really excited to see Mamdani has continued his lead, even though their preferred candidate, Brad Lander, is in a distant third. And we do have one Lander supporter here, State Senator Andrew Bernardes, early endorser Brad Lander. Thank you so much for being here on New York One. Tell me, how are you feeling seeing that the person Lander cross-endorsed, Zohran Mamdani, is maintaining his lead?
Well, I'm just, first of all, incredibly proud of Brad Lander and everything he's done in this campaign, how he has coalesced the progressive movement in this city to stop a Mayor Andrew Cuomo, who I believe is not the right person to lead this city moving forward. I've known Brad for many, many years. I would be here if he was first in the polls or last in the polls, because Brad's that type of person who deserves that type of support. It's exciting to see what has been built in this city around the energy of this mayoral campaign. I have not had a chance to work as closely with Zohran directly in Albany. I know a lot of people who have or are excited about what he has to offer. One of the reasons why I endorse Brad is because I know what he can deliver, because I've seen what he has delivered. I think that's going to be key for how this city moves forward, is being able to show results right now.
And polls were showing there were some Brad Lander voters who were going to also rank Cuomo. Then the cross-endorsement came. When you were out talking to voters, what did you hear from them? Were they recognizing that cross-endorsement, and do you think it shifted?
I definitely felt the shift on the ground. I think a lot of people that I spoke to were diehard Brad supporters, but also recognized that they had a bigger obligation and opportunity to make sure that the future of this city is not in the hands of someone who's from the past. And they really wanted to make sure that they blocked the potential of Andrew Cuomo to become the next mayor. And so I did feel that shift on the ground quite significantly. And I was all across my district today, from Bay Ridge up to Brooklyn Heights. I heard that message consistently and clearly from many types of voters.
Now, of course, obviously Brad Lander in a distant third. What do you hope for him and his political career in the future going forward?
Whatever Brad Lander wants to do, I will be right there beside him, because he's been beside me every step of my career. He believed in me before I was even elected and helped get me to where I am today. And so I'm excited. I'm disappointed he wasn't #1 tonight, but I'm excited to see what he wants to do next. And whatever that is, electoral politics or otherwise, I'm eager to play a part in it.
And seeing the polls leading up to Election Day and now seeing the results, what do you think it says about the electorate and what Democrats here in the city want from their nominee?
Democrats want leaders who are going to fix their problems. There is a huge housing crisis. There is a huge affordability crisis. There is a child care crisis. People can't afford to live in this city. People want action. They don't want solutions from people who caused these problems a decade or so more. They are demanding action. They want Congress to act. They want the federal government to act. They want our state government to act. And they certainly want our city government to act. And that's what I think we saw here tonight.
And, you know, a lot of the polling had showed Mamdani's support came from white voters, high income, high educated. Do you think that is still holding, or do you think the vote is reflecting a broader support than what the polls had indicated was his core base of, you know, Brownstone, Brooklyn, Upper West Side, and places like that?
I haven't had a chance to really see an update of numbers or see where things are, so I can't really speak to that. I'll just say that anyone who wants to be a successful mayor of New York has to build a coalition that covers the full spectrum of New York City. That's the recipe to success. That's what we need to see of any nominee who has a shot of winning in November and then governing for the next 4 years, particularly in this age of Trump. So that's what I think we need to see moving forward.
All right. Thank you, State Senator Andrew Bernardes. We have Jumani Jumaane Williams, the public advocate, taking the stage behind me. Errol, I'm going to send it back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Dan. Adrienne Adams, who's a candidate running out of Queens, is addressing her supporters. Let's listen in.
Into this race about 3 months ago at Rochdale Village. We propelled immediately to where folks who have been running in this race for a year and a half already were, and we leapfrogged over those candidates. Oh no, it ain't over. Oh no, we're not going there. And then, as things began to progress, and people started talking about our money, and oh, she's not going to get matching funds. Well, y'all that were watching, the matching funds came out 5 days after we got in the race. So logically, we knew that we were not going to get the first iteration of matching funds anyway. But I tell you what we did do. What we did do was we raised more money in 5 days, once again, as any candidate could have ever have hoped for or wished for in this race. And before I go any further, I want y'all to give it up for the baddest AG that ever walked this. Her name is Letitia James. And she taught me everything I know about fighting the good fight. I also want to thank my amazing campaign team. They jumped in and they said, oh no, we're not going to be able to lift off the ground. Oh yeah, we lifted off the ground. We did much more than lift off the ground. We made people stand up and take note for who this campaign was and why we were here, and made people realize, oh yeah, there really is somebody in this race that really does care about me. Somebody that really does want to make better for you and me. And so as we continue on, I also want to thank, oh my goodness, my colleagues that are here today too. This is Councilmember Chris Banks. And I couldn't be here, of course. I talk about them in any speech that I talk about. My family. You all know one of my taglines? I am a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and a sister. Here they are, some of them. The wife, the mother, the grandmother. All here to support little old me, who thought and still believes that she could be the first woman mayor of the city.
Okay, that's Adrienne Adams. We're going to go now to Jumaane Williams, who's addressing his supporters. Let's listen to that.
The step forward, and for instance, Federal Founders said the people with more privilege have to step up and take more risks. So while I am thankful for all of the people who came and voted for me, I really appreciate that. I thank you so much for re-electing me. But I think even Brad will agree that what we're most proud of is Andrew Cuomo is down right now. The Democratic...
Okay, bit of a reminder there that Jumaane Williams, who has declared victory, and we have called it for him, he will, in fact, get another term. We should remind folks that he ran against Andrew Cuomo not that long ago, and we can see some of what he was getting at there, pointing out that defeating Andrew Cuomo was on a lot of people's agenda. Our political director, Bob Hart, is here with us. What do you make of all these numbers?
I mean, you and I talked shortly before 9 o'clock about how Mamdani would have a lead, as I predicted, and that happened, but that it would narrow, and it would get tighter and tighter. Errol, it's barely narrowed. There's a 7.8 point lead that Mamdani has over Cuomo, with about 85% of the expected vote in. He's basically held the lead. It's tightened a tiny bit. This is basically the worst case scenario for the Andrew Cuomo campaign. And it's going to be extremely difficult if these numbers roughly hold. That means no one got 50%, so we have to go to the ranked choice computer in a week. It's going to be extremely, extremely hard for Andrew Cuomo to leapfrog Mamdani as those numbers go down. Brad Lander, who's in third, has basically cross-endorsed Mamdani. That means that Mamdani will probably get more of those Lander votes. That's the biggest source of remaining votes. So this has been a spectacularly successful night for Mamdani, and barring a statistical fluke, he could very well be the Democratic nominee for mayor. This is an amazing story that we're witnessing in live TV.
Indeed, and this is going to be international news if what you just described is the way this night ends. Let's go over to Ayanna Harry. She's at the Andrew Cuomo campaign headquarters at the Carpenters Union in the West Village. Ayanna, what is the mood like there?
The mood here is still pretty optimistic. Folks are, of course, glued to the televisions where New York 1 is on, and they are waiting for these results to come in. But people here also understand that this is a ranked choice voting election, so we will not know the winner tonight. So much of this race has been framed around as a decision for New York City voters between a seasoned, experienced Democrat in Andrew Cuomo or someone who may be younger, has fresher ideas in Zohran Mamdani. And Mamdani has certainly picked up a lot of support from younger voters. And so I did want to bring in Assemblymember Jordan Wright. You are the youngest elected official in Manhattan. You have endorsed and vocally supported Andrew Cuomo. As a young New Yorker, what is it about Cuomo, his message, his campaign that spoke to you as a Harlem resident and also as a state assembly member?
Thank you, Ayanna. It's very important to me that, you know, as Governor Andrew Cuomo did a lot for black New Yorkers, people in my district. There was a lot done with LaGuardia Airport. There was a lot done with the Moynihan train station. And the list really goes on. And it's really important to me that, you know, we continue to see that leadership. And, you know, my family has worked closely with the Cuomo family for a very long time. So it really means a lot to me to be able to be here supporting Andrew Cuomo's run for mayor.
As you walk the streets of Harlem, you talk to your constituents, what are the pressing issues that are really driving their votes in this race?
A lot of affordable housing issues. People want somewhere to live. A lot of cost of living issues. People want, you know, be able to make a living wage. These are two things that Andrew Cuomo has definitely committed to doing, building many units of affordable housing, as well as a $20 minimum wage.
Yeah, you spoke about, you know, black voters and the support traditionally for Andrew Cuomo, but we know black voters as a demographic is dramatically shifting and changing. What are you seeing in terms of changing needs and wants for black voters, and how is Andrew Cuomo also speaking to that?
I think Andrew Cuomo is kind of speaking, you know, talking about what he's done. And I think, you know, black voters, their memories are long, and they understand exactly what the deal is, and they know what Andrew Cuomo is going to bring to the table once he's elected mayor.
Okay. Jordan Wright, we appreciate you sharing your time. Errol, right now is we're inside the Carpenters Union Hall waiting for Andrew Cuomo to come in and address the supporters that have been gathering here tonight. And again, people eagerly watching New York 1, listening to you, Errol, analyzing these results as they come in, and just staying tuned.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. We're going to send it over to our Courtney Gross. She's in Studio N analyzing tonight's primary election with a panel of experts. Courtney.
Good evening, Errol. As we wait for more information about tonight's results, let's bring in our panel of experts. Democratic consultant Teresa Gonzalez is back with us, along with Stu Lozer, a longtime Democratic consultant who also served as press secretary under Mayor Michael Bloomberg. So, Stu, I'm going to start with you. Mayor Michael Bloomberg endorsed in this race. He gave $8.3 million to a super PAC called Fix the City that spent more than $20 million to push the candidacy of Andrew Cuomo. I know you're not Mike Bloomberg, but you're very close with him. So how do you think that the former mayor is feeling tonight?
I haven't talked to him tonight. When Mike endorsed former Governor Cuomo, put out a really heartfelt, thoughtful, and frankly great statement. I did not write it, in which he emphasized that no candidate is perfect. And maybe if Andrew Cuomo and his team had gone and agreed that no candidate is perfect more often, more voters would have given him support right now. He's still alive, but as it looks right now, his argument of few and no mistakes were made, the governor's argument that I made no mistakes, did not seem to carry the day.
Teresa, do you think that it's a fact that the governor wasn't contrite enough, didn't apologize enough, didn't perhaps talk about why he was driven from office because of the sexual harassment allegations, that we're seeing these results tonight where Zohran Mamdani is clearly in a very good position going into the potential ranked choice voting scenario or computation that will occur on July 1st at noon.
I will say that I think part of the kind of what makes Mamdani's campaign so electric is that he has made it a point to connect with people, right? To be out there, to be visible, to talk about things like, maybe I'm not as experienced, right? But let me tell you what I do care about and what you care about. And I think I would say that one of the challenges that the Cuomo campaign had was getting him out there more. So I think it was less about talking about what his faults are, more about kind of being okay with being with people, in front of people, and out there and open about it. But and I think that's really what the part of the magic of Mamdani's campaign has been.
We have some mailers from Fix the City. You know, I mentioned before the super PAC spent an unprecedented amount of money on this race for mayor, more than $20 million. They raised $25 million. The mailers that we have, we can pull up on the screen here, you know, they were very targeted. They talked to Jewish voters in particular, sent out to certain areas in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and said they called Mamdani dangerous. They had rhetoric that many people said was dark. There was questions about whether or not they were lengthening his beard. What is your reaction to that, Stu? I mean, do you think that this message kind of backfired?
Well, look, I think you're exactly right when you say it was a dark message. The primary rationale that Andrew Cuomo was offering is that New York is a city in chaos, and that New York is a city that needs to be fixed. And the campaign, or the amazing thing about that is this is a primary in June. June follows the 6 weeks of the year in New York City that are the best 6 weeks, the ones in which you say it is fantastic and it was worth freezing my way to the train, to the bus, or even if you have a car waiting for you on a sidewalk, freezing my way out there because I get to live in the greatest city in the world in the greatest 8 weeks of the year. It's a phenomenally optimistic time.
You're saying spring alone is the reason why Mamdani won?
I'm saying that it's the second campaign in a row in which a candidate who has spent a lot of time in Westchester County and does not understand what winter is, perhaps doesn't understand what it's like to be a New Yorker living in the winter in a cooped up space, no matter how rich you are. Second time, first Andrew Yang and now Andrew Cuomo saying it is a campaign, everything is chaos, which is an amazing amount of cognitive dissonance to have to force down people's throats, as opposed to exactly what Teresa said. Assemblyman Mamdani started off with the simplest and most traditional sales technique in the world. I'm going to tell you something that you agree with already, so you agree with me. And the first thing you do is you agree with it. That builds trust. And then we can have a conversation. City is not affordable for enough people, says the assemblyman. We all agree with it. It's like selling anything. The first thing you do is get them to agree with you on anything, as opposed to Cuomo campaign strategy, which is the first thing I'm going to do is try and convince you of something that you may not even think is true by the time election day comes around.
Do you think that he was running, Teresa, Cuomo, what I'm talking about, was running it almost on a 2021 message? His message was very similar to Eric Adams, talking about hiring 5,000 more police officers, talking about public safety, and Mamdani obviously picked up on that affordability message. Free buses for everyone, free childcare for everyone. You can argue about whether or not it's even possible in the state legislature, but Cuomo may have just been going into this with the wrong message.
You know, I said this during the break. You know, I don't know that Zohran's campaign would be here without kind of this overarching darkness of the national tenor, right? There's this feeling of like, you know, and we saw this during the election where it was like bread and butter issues are what people care about, and so. And there was all of this excitement that led to kind of a moment of despair when we lost, right? And I think, you know, Zohran's been able to kind of pick up on that, whereas I don't know that Cuomo's tapped into kind of that need to move away from this moment of despair and this kind of...
Can I just add one thing to this?
Yeah.
Donald Trump won because he ran, both times he won, he's only won twice, but both times he won because he ran on something that people understand. This time, it was no taxes on tips, which is a great, is it a good idea? We'll debate it. what does it say? It says I am the Republican Party, and I don't care about. I'm not just here for rich people. I'm here for people who make tips, people who don't have salaries, and B, it's something you understand. Whereas the Democratic campaign, I was a strong advocate, a strong surrogate for Kamala Harris in the Jewish community. When I was asked, what is an opportunity society, or what is an opportunity economy, I don't know what that is. Andrew, you talked about the mail from the Cuomo campaign. Bless them. They put. I got a handbill when I walked into the campaign to vote this week. It had 21 points on it in English. It was bilingual, so it had 42 points. It's a lot of information to absorb between walking in off the curb and going in to vote.
And one thing we can say about the Mamdani campaign, it was concise. The message was very clear. Free buses, childcare, and obviously freeze the rent. It's unclear if he's going to be able to actually get that agenda.
We don't know.
Yes, of course. Okay, I think we're going to go back to Errol Lewis in the other studio for now.
All right, thanks very much, Courtney. If you're just joining us, it is now 10 p.m. The polls have been closed for an hour, and in the race for mayor, Zohran Mamdani is currently leading with a more than 7-point lead over Andrew Cuomo. Meanwhile, Mark Levine holds a strong lead in the race for city controller, and we've already called the races for public advocate, with Jumaane Williams securing re-election, as well as the race for borough president of the Bronx. Vanessa Gibson has won another nomination, and Antonio Reynoso of Brooklyn also winning renomination. Let's bring in our political director, Bob Hart, and Bobby Kuza over at the big board. And let's start with the numbers, Bobby. Show us what's going on in that race for mayor.
Right. So, I mean, we've been talking about how Zohran Mamdani was supposedly going to be at his high water mark at the beginning of the night, and then the lead was going to narrow and narrow, and potentially former Governor Andrew Cuomo could overtake him. That has not happened, right? We started with Zohran Mamdani at the beginning of the night with something like a 9-point lead. That has hardly shrunk at all. I mean, he's up 7.4 percentage points right now, and we're almost out of votes. I mean, we're up at 87% of the total expected vote count. So this is going to ranked choice voting at this point. It looks like nobody's going to hit 50% in this race, but it seems highly unlikely that the ranked choice votes will go to Andrew Cuomo, especially when you're talking about somebody like Brad Lander. Brad Lander's in third place with 11.4%. And we have a pretty good idea that most of those Brad Lander votes will end up going to Zohran Mamdani in the ranked choice tabulation, given the fact that they cross-endorsed each other. Polls that have been taken the last couple of months have also shown that most Lander votes go to Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani could not be in a better place right now with 87% of the vote. I also wanted to show you a little bit of the borough-by-borough breakdown. We knew Zohran Mamdani was going to do well in Brooklyn, and you look at the numbers here. He's up 19 points in Brooklyn. He's also up in Queens, which we didn't necessarily expect, up by 8 points in Queens. He's also ahead in Manhattan by about 6 points, make that maybe 5 points. So he's ahead in all three of those boroughs. Those boroughs together make up about 79% of the Democratic primary electorate. They make up 79% of Democratic primary voters. So even though Andrew Cuomo is winning in the Bronx and he's winning on Staten Island, that's just not going to be nearly enough. I mean, those two boroughs together only make up about 21% of the Democratic primary electorate. So, you know, Zohran Mamdani is winning in places that we didn't necessarily expect him to win, like you were talking about earlier, Errol. So that's going to be one of the stories of the night, is the way that he has outperformed expectations. And also, you know, you look at the trajectory of Zohran Mamdani over these past few weeks and past few months. I mean, you go back to February, nobody even knew who this guy was. I mean, there was an Emerson poll in February where he had 1% of the vote. He was 32 points behind Andrew Cuomo, and as recently as May, he was 12 points behind Andrew Cuomo, but he kept narrowing the gap, and now he has overtaken Andrew Cuomo, and it looks like he might end the night there.
Okay, so Bob Hart, political director, what do you make of these results so far?
It reminds me a lot of AOC when she beat Joe Crowley in that Democratic primary for Congress. Think about it. 5 years ago, Andrew Cuomo is governor of New York State, one of the most powerful politicians in the entire country. 5 years ago, Mamdani is running this in this crowded primary for state assembly, and yet here we are. The other thing we know, Bobby's crunching those numbers. Mamdani's at about 44%. He needs 50% to win in the ranked choice simulations. Going back 4 years ago, Eric Adams, who eventually won, he was only at 31%. So it took him a long time to win. What I'm saying is that Mamdani is almost already at the finish line, Errol. And for Andrew Cuomo to catch him would be, like I said earlier, a statistical anomaly. I really don't see how Cuomo can catch him at this point.
Right. I mean, if you convert it into raw numbers, there's something like 60 or 70,000 votes that Andrew Cuomo would have to find somewhere between now and next Tuesday.
Right. And so what it would mean is that all of a real disproportionate amount of the supporters of the other candidates would be going for Cuomo. We've seen the cross endorsements. Brad Lander, who is at roughly about 10%, he has endorsed Mamdani. That means disproportionately his votes are going to go to someone who already has the lead. So it's, to me, obviously we have to count everything, but I've seen enough elections, I've followed enough, done enough math, that I think that it's going to be very, very weird math for Andrew Cuomo to somehow triumph when they turn on the computers next Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to be doing more analysis on a special podcast episode tonight, but even in advance of that, this is going to be international news tomorrow.
It is, and there's already, I think, post-mortems of the Cuomo campaign that are going to be going on. What did he do? What did he not do? I think a lot of what he did not do were the candidate forums that we saw all of the other candidates go to, going around and doing the pressing the flesh, going into diners. When Hillary Clinton, who was First Lady of the United States, decided to run for the U.S. Senate, she did a listening tour and went to stores and diners and farms and acted humble. We did not really see, for the most part, that humility from the Andrew Cuomo in his campaign. Instead, they acted like they've done this before. They knew everyone. And I think that idea that he was a quasi-incumbent didn't fly with a lot of voters, especially because he was damaged goods and left Albany. Basically, he was run out of town because of the sexual harassment accusations against him.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. He was, in some ways, trying to run an inside and outside campaign, right? He's saying, oh, New York is really screwed up. It's in crisis. We need to make some changes. On the other hand, you know, and some of the other candidates did point this out, they're like, well, you were in charge for over a decade of the whole state. You bear some responsibility for whatever it is that's not going right in New York right now.
Andrew Cuomo is obviously a very strong politician, but his great weakness is there's no humility. There was never a statement of contrition about mistakes he made, either with handling COVID, saying that nothing was perfect, handling the sexual harassment scandals that drove him from the job, and reintroducing himself to voters. He had name recognition, but that clearly hasn't been enough tonight.
Okay, let's go back out to Brooklyn, where Brad Lander is about to address his supporters. We're in Park Slope there. And if somebody could get those signs down. Oh, there we go.
I'm under strict no dancing orders. Meg Barnett, everyone. I could have gotten not one more vote than the people standing on this stage today, and I would still be the luckiest guy in the city of New York. Woo! Thank you all for being here tonight. The votes are still being counted, and the ranked choice tabulations will take a few days, but this much is clear. Together, we are sending Andrew Cuomo back to the suburbs. With our help, Zohran Mamdani will be the Democratic nominee for the mayor of the city of New York. And we are on a path to win a city that all New Yorkers can afford and where everyone belongs. I really can't put into words what the support of everyone in this room tonight means. You all did so much to make this campaign possible. There are leaders here from organizations and people who supported me long before it was cool. I want to especially shout out Make the Road Action. Tough action. Choose for racial and economic justice. You heard just a few minutes ago from Public Advocate Chumani Williams. We have some other amazing people in the room, like State Assembly Member Emily Gallagher. Thank you. And I'll mention a few more later as I see them and as they come in. But all of you, I mean, will everyone in this room who hosted a house party raise your hand? How about everyone who made a contribution to this campaign? How about everyone who stood outside today on the hottest day in 15 years? I really can't believe you all did that. It is incredible. I always say that really the thing I am most proud of in public service is building the best teams, and we have the best one of all. Our volunteers, and especially, boy, our campaign staff, they put on a masterclass in what dedication looks like when you've got the right people in place. So let's hear it for the best damn staff of any campaign in this race. Raise your hands, Landers, Team Landers staff, please. Also, the only unionized staff in the campaign. You guys obviously wrote the best policies and plans, that's hands down. You obviously did the best Andrew Cuomo oppo. Hit after hit after hit. You were the best debate preparers, obviously. And you even finally succeeded in making me look good on TikTok. Really, your devotion, your passion, your belief in me as the right leader for this city mean more than I could possibly communicate. And we had some incredible consultants on this race, so thank you, Berlin Rosen and Global Strategy and Blake Zeff and everybody else who worked on this team. I also need to thank some of the most important people in my life and on this campaign. I mean, of course, the New York Times editorial board. Just kidding, of course. I love Wordle and connections, but I really urge the Times to cancel their new feature, editorial riddles. No one likes those. No, obviously, I mean the set of people who are standing here behind me. My incredible parents, Carol and David. I'm sorry that Andrew Cuomo attacked St. Louis in the debate. We showed him. But really, I often say that my parents are proud of me like it's the 5th grade spelling bee, which I did not win. And I couldn't be prouder to be your son. Big shout out and thank you to Meg's sister Beth, who is here. And to my sister Rachel, unbelievable.
That was Brad Lander speaking in Park Slope. Let's go over to where Zelnor Myrie is in Brooklyn, speaking to his supporters.
A man with very quiet confidence who helped us build what we have today, who was a constant source of advice. Mark Guma, he's here, give it up for him. My organizing director who had everybody in t-shirts doing the hard work, doing the field. Let's give it up for Rebecca, make some noise. Had an amazing digital team, Zinzer and Harmony, doing amazing work every single day. Give it up for them. And to my government team, who continued the service to this community, that helped us still deliver while running for mayor, who helped us save SUNY Downstate and got $1 billion invested in, who helped helped us to establish an Office of Gun Violence Prevention and get $3 million in it. Who helped us to pass much more legislation to uplift this community. I want to give a big round of applause to Godfrey, to Portia, to Matt, to Frida, to Atira. Please give it up. Please give it up for them. And I, of course, have to thank my family. My mom, who everybody knows, and everybody loves. My dad, who we brought out of retirement to come do every single thing that this campaign needed. Please give it up for my parents. There's a very pretty woman in the audience. I'd argue the baddest in the audience, who sacrificed a lot of time with me, who gave up a lot for us to go on this mission. My beautiful wife, Diana Richardson Myers. And to our son, who has joined us tonight, Isaac. Let's give him a round of applause.
Zilnor Myrie conceding, another one of the mayoral candidates. He's out in Brooklyn. Let's go out to Queens, to the Zohran Mamdani campaign headquarters, where our Bernadette Hogan joins us now. Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. So right now, I've got the Mamdani supporters standing behind me. We also have New York One on, of course, with the live coverage. And with me is the co-director of the Working Families Party, who argued to rank Zohran Mamdani #1 on their slate of preferred candidates. Ana Maria Archila joins me now. Ana Maria, let's start out with what you thought about Mamdani a year ago when he was, again, a two-term assemblyman. Nobody really knew who he was. He talks about this time when he was at 1%, right? Name recognition. Why did you think that he should top the Working Family Party's slate?
Well, we studied the results of the 2021 election, and we understood that in order to win against the candidate of the billionaires, we needed to construct a coalition that could engage young people, that could engage Muslim voters, that could engage working class voters from across the city. And we knew that Zohran was uniquely equipped to engage a generation of voters that feel really disillusioned with the Democratic Party, but who really very much need New York to be a place where they can stay, afford, and to stay here and thrive. And we also thought other candidates would play a role in that effort. And so we set out to build a coalition that was ideologically diverse, racially diverse, that could really represent the majority of New York City. And that's what we did. And then Zohran, as part of our slate, really played as an amazing team member, but also built the campaign that had the best capacity to reach voters all across the city, and that's why we're seeing tonight's results.
Now, when we look at past campaigns run by progressives like Mamdani, now he's a DSA member, Democratic Socialist. You also ran a statewide race for lieutenant governor. Talk to me about your race, but then also Cynthia Nixon, Zephyr Teachout, those that were able to crack. I mean, Zephyr Teachout was probably the most successful running for governor against Andrew Cuomo. She hit about 40% statewide. But why has it been, I guess, a stumbling block for citywide candidates to move past a certain percentage point? And why are we seeing Zohran Mamdani with over 90% of election results in now, within striking distance of changing those past data points?
Yeah. Well, first of all, these two, both the Cynthia Nixon campaign and Zephyr Teachout were statewide campaigns. My campaign was statewide. They shared some elements. We spoke about people's economic realities, as did Zohran. Zohran took from everything and got the best. He said we have to invite people into the democracy by talking to them at the doors. He said we have to have a clear message that addresses their concerns around the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of groceries. He did that. And then I think he also understood that in a moment when the electorate was so depressed and demoralized after November, it was really important to not give up on people, to go everywhere, to talk to everyone, and to make sure that people who are always always pushed to the margins, felt invited to the center of our democracy and the vision for the city.
So now going forward, depending on the election results tonight, which we might not know at the end of the night, we might have a couple more days until all the ballots are counted. What do you see going forward when, if it's Mamdani, what challenges do you foresee when he's going against an Eric Adams, a Republican, and maybe Andrew Cuomo if he ends up deciding to take that independent line?
Yes. Well, we know that the billionaire class didn't pour $25 million and is ready to give up, so we are going to get ready to win in the general election, whether it is with, against Cuomo and Eric Adams, or only one of them. We know that the forces behind both of their campaigns are the forces that have made New York City so unaffordable for so many people, that have made New York City a place where working families really struggle. So we will do the work that needs to be done to engage the communities that still are getting to know Zoran Mamdani, and we will make sure that in the general election we are winning with an incredible mandate to deliver for working families, not the billionaires.
In the general election, you'll have to attract independent voters, right, who are not allowed to vote in this closed Democratic primary, maybe talk to some Republicans. I mean, a general election is different, obviously, for those reasons. But why do you think, these messages of affordability, which are vastly different from the message of affordability from Governor Kathy Hochul, or some more moderates in the state legislature, why do you think that that has had this success? And again, I'm seeing young people out in McCarran Park. I'm seeing Mamdani talk to on the subway up in Inwood. Why do you think he was able to maybe bridge that gap?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. So on the general electorate, we have already done some modeling of what it would look like to run in the general election. And we know that New York City's independent voters are actually very ideologically diverse. We have people on the left who really are tired of the two-party system, people who are registered in the Working Families Party, and then we also have people who are more centrist. So there is a lot of room to grow for Zoran with independent voters, obviously more room to grow with Democratic voters, and we know that regardless of people's party affiliation, everybody's worried about the cost of living in New York City, and Zoran's campaign speaks uniquely to that concern and then proposes real ideas that actually address people's challenges.
All right, thank you, Ana Maria, so much for your time. We'll leave it at that for now. So, Errol, again, very interesting. Ana Maria Achilla was not the director of the Working Family Party in 2021, and she explained that, of course, on camera. But this, of course, is a different, more strategized Working Families Party when they were coming out with their slate. And off camera, Ana Maria was telling me they decided to go with Mamdani, Brad Lander, and Adrian Adams to try to build that more diverse coalition. Back to you.
Okay, thanks a whole lot. We understand Andrew Cuomo is about to address his supporters at the Carpenters Union. Let's go there now.
Team that really put together a marvelous campaign and worked so hard. I've worked with a lot of different groups of people, and I've been through a lot of campaigns. But I have to tell you, this was a really special, talented group of people. I want to thank all the elected officials who stepped up. I want to thank the labor leaders who stepped up. I want to thank the carpenters, where we got it started in HTC in 1199. Give them a round of applause. They were really fantastic. I want to thank Mayor Bloomberg, who stepped forward in a big way. I enjoyed having the team back together again. I'll tell you the truth. People came back from when I was at HUD. The old HUD team came back. That's 30 years ago. And the Attorney General team, that's 20 years ago, and the governor's team, and friends that go back to my childhood. So that was all enjoyable, and I'm very proud of the campaign that we ran, and I'm proud of the effort that we put forth, and I'm proud of the issues that we discussed. But tonight was not our night. Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night, and he put together a great campaign, and he touched young people and inspired them and moved them and got them to come out and vote. And he really ran a highly impactful successful campaign. I called him, I congratulated him, I applaud him sincerely for his effort, and let's give him a round of applause and thank him for his campaign. Now, I want to look at all the numbers as they come in, and this ranked choice voting, and what the numbers actually say and do. There is no doubt that there are important issues that are facing this city. That's why this election is so imperative. That's why so many people came out to vote, because these are real issues, and they're not getting better, and they're getting worse, and that's why New Yorkers are as concerned as they are. So the challenges we face are real, and they deserve real consideration. And I want to give some thought about the best way to help address them, the best way to help the party, but most of all, the best way to help the city. And that's what we'll be thinking about as we go forward. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be having conversations with that because the work is what is most important, and the city is what is most important, and the progress for the city at this important time is what is most important. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart for your really fantastic effort and friendship. Again, I want to applaud the Assemblyman for a really smart and good and impactful campaign. Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won. And we're going to take a look. We'll make some decisions. But I love each and every one of you, and I thank you for what you've done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just answered. Thank you.
Okay, that was Andrew Cuomo, and he appears to have conceded, Courtney. We weren't expecting that. Normally what you hear in a situation like this is count every vote, let's wait till all of the numbers are in. Andrew Cuomo leaving no doubt. In fact, he said he called Zohran Mamdani. He said tonight was his night, and pretty much that's the end of it.
He said, I applaud the Assemblyman. He deserved it. He won. And he said he's going to give some thought to the issues and I guess update us in the future about potentially what's going to happen for him. Obviously, Zohran Mamdani, according to the recent numbers that we've gotten from the Board of Elections and the Associated Press, has not hit that 50% plus one threshold just yet. So presumably, even though Andrew Cuomo is kind of conceding the race here, we're still going to have that ranked choice voting simulation next Tuesday on July 1st at noon. Obviously, come back to New York 1. We'll give you all those numbers then. But I think the real question is, what is Andrew Cuomo going to do in November? He has already collected petitions. He's already collected signatures. He's going to be on the ballot potentially in November with a third-party ballot line. But will Andrew Cuomo, who mounted this campaign, obviously to try to rehab his issue after leaving office in disgrace, will he continue to run when he's so damaged potentially by losing to a three-term assemblyman from Queens who barely anybody knew a couple of months ago?
Very true.
Andrew Cuomo went into this thinking that he was the future of the Democratic Party. So much national media was watching us here at New York 1, watching the 5 boroughs, watching New York City to see where is the Democratic Party going? Are they going with an establishment, potentially stability candidate who wants to come back and rehab their issue, be potentially the oldest mayor in City Hall, or will they go with a Democratic socialist? And clearly, the voters have spoken.
Well, that is correct. I mean, the voters also said in the same polls that showed Andrew Cuomo with a lead, those same polls showed that overwhelming numbers in New York were dissatisfied with the status quo. And so, you know, it's hard, I think, to both say, I'm the answer, and I'm also something new. And clearly, the voters have said, no, we want something new, And Zohran Mamdani managed to capture that vote.
Absolutely. This is a change election. I think people have started to realize that, or we're talking about that, and people are comparing Zohran Mamdani to Barack Obama back in 2008, and comparing the rhetoric, the style, the way that he connects with voters. There's no question that Mamdani is a very skilled communicator. Whether you're interviewing him one-on-one, you're meeting him on the street, or you're watching him on TikTok, people feel very connected to him, and that's clearly why he did so well tonight. I'm very curious about what the future will be for Andrew Cuomo, what will happen in November. We talked about this, alluded to this a little bit earlier. I mean, we should remind our viewers at home that, yes, this is the Democratic primary. It looks like Zohran Mamdani is having a very good night. We'll get the clear numbers next week. But this is not it. We have a November general election. Eric Adams is going to be on the ballot. We'll see if Andrew Cuomo is on the ballot. Zohran Mamdani is going to be on the ballot. Jim Walden, another independent lawyer, will be on the ballot. And then, of course, Curtis Lewa will be on the ballot. We're going to have a real race, and it is certainly not over yet.
That's right. And look, this is going to be international news tomorrow. They're going to have his face all over newspapers in London and, you know, in India and all over the place. He's going to have a level of momentum that we've only seen a few times. And this would be analogous in some ways to what happened after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won an upset election back in 2018. And the money just rolled in. I mean, he is not going to have any problems raising money and putting on a very competitive race, although all of that money that was lined up against him, as Ana Maria Archila said, they're not going home.
No, and he's, you know, he did very well in terms of fundraising. His average donation for the Zohran Mamdani campaign is $80. In a New York City mayor's race where you have to spend big bucks, we're talking about $8 million to get on television, that's unheard of. But like you said, big business, whether it's Mike Bloomberg or the head of the Hess Corporation or the head of Home Depot or other Trump donors, really donated to a super PAC to try to, you know, take Mamdani down. It was not successful. I'm curious if the business community, who is their candidate now? Who are they going to turn to? They don't like Zohran Mamdani. Why? Because he wants to raise taxes. We know that that potential agenda in the state legislature in Albany may not have a lot of support there. We heard Governor Kathy Hochul say that there's no support there. So we'll see if he can even get this agenda accomplished. But we know that there's going to be a lot of people who don't even want him to give him the opportunity to do that.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You never know. But it's remarkable from what I've seen over the years how quickly they can go from he's a menace, he must not be elected, to hey, maybe we can do business with this guy. That's the New York way.
But I think that Zohran Mamdani, all the coverage of him, what people know about him is he is this principled person who doesn't necessarily want to compromise. There is reporting about how he had this free bus pilot program. It was, you know, the pinnacle of his platform, and he ended up losing it in Albany because he didn't want to compromise on another piece of the state budget, and he didn't vote for the state budget and lost the big program that he supported. So is he learning how to compromise? Is he going to learn how to be an executive? Is he going to learn how to work with all of the different varying interests and forces in New York City? It's very complicated.
Well, as we will see, reality is a stern teacher. Let's go out to Jamaica, Queens, and our Kelly Mena, who is with City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams. She gave a speech to concede a little while ago. Kelly.
Hi, Errol. That's right. I'm standing here with the council speaker. You know, she finished in 4th place so far tonight. Tell us how you're feeling about that and about the final days of the campaign, really.
I still feel very exhilarated. As I've said to all of my supporters who are gathered here this evening, I feel exhilarated. This has been an amazing journey. So happy to be on it, and so happy to see the final next week.
You know, you didn't cross-endorse anybody in this race. Seeing the way you finished tonight, do you still stand by that decision? And do you think it was the right decision for your campaign?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I got into this race for an everyday New Yorker, for New Yorkers that wake up and see the same thing. My whole family here, wife, mother, grandmother, this is my foundation, Kelly, and I ran this race for our communities and the folks that were not being seen and heard.
I wanted to ask you about that. You got into the race a little bit later than everybody else. In your speech earlier today, you mentioned that starting a little bit later, not necessarily getting the matching funds. You know, what's your message now? What were you bringing to the race that you maybe didn't see in the other candidates at the time?
I was bringing in a voice. Number one, as being, you know, the Speaker Speaker of the City Council, bringing in that experience. The one who has successfully negotiated city budgets, about to close our next one, an amazing accomplishment, and also the one who is already doing the work. And as I have continued to express that and repeat that as well, I am so joyful about this experience. Everything has been fantastic, and again, I'm still in this race.
Yeah, I was going to say that the poll that came out yesterday had you a distant fifth. You're actually fourth now. Do you consider that a successful win for right now?
Oh, you better believe it. We are still in this race, moving this race along, again, for the voice of the voiceless, the people that really wanted to see me get in this race all along. I'm still in this race and running it all the way to the end for them.
I wanted to ask you, Zohran Mamdani holds a significant lead over the ex-governor. You're both on the Working Families Party slate. What do you think that's sending, that message that he's leading right now, and do you think that that is a significant advantage?
Zohran Mamdani has run a heck of a race, and I feel honored to still be a part of that slate with him. We're going to go forward once again. I'm still running my own race, though, and very happy about that, and we're waiting for next Tuesday when the real results come through, but he ran a heck of a race.
I wanted to ask you, there's rumors that you might be chosen as lieutenant governor for the state. Is there any truth to that? What can you tell us tonight?
I don't know anything about that. I keep hearing that rumor spiraling out, but as it stands right now, no one has approached me to the LG, and I don't know where that came from.
Would you be open to it?
I never say never to a lot of things, particularly in the climate of today's politics, but for right now, that is not on my horizon.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Good luck on the final finish. We'll see how the rest of the race goes. Thank you so much. You heard right there from Council Speaker Adrienne Adams on the race as it goes right now, on her own race and campaign strategy, and on her potential future here in New York City politics. Errol, back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. Let's go back to the West Village, where Ayanna Harry is standing by at the Andrew Cuomo campaign headquarters. What is the mood there? I see a lot of empty chairs. Did everybody clear out already?
Yeah, Errol, people cleared out pretty quickly after that pretty stunning speech from Andrew Cuomo for folks in the room. But I do want to mention I have an update, some clarification from the campaign. Here's how they want us to read that speech. Andrew Cuomo will take his time, wait for the ranked choice voting results to come in. He'll analyze the numbers and then decide whether or not he will continue to run in the November general election on the independent ballot line that he already has set up. Fight and deliver. Up until Andrew Cuomo delivered that speech, folks in this room, they were trying to remain optimistic, many of them telling me they don't believe a candidate will reach 50% tonight, so they were trying to say they wanted to wait until the ranked choice voting results came in, even though it became apparent that Andrew Cuomo would have a pretty difficult time catching up to Zohran Mamdani. This was supposed to be Andrew Cuomo's political comeback after he stepped down as governor back in 2021. And he is running a race, or he ran this race because he did, of course, refer to this campaign now in the past tense. He ran after President Donald Trump really set a new tone in terms of political comebacks after he won in November, just months after he was convicted in a Manhattan courtroom. But throughout my time covering this campaign, time and time again, we saw questions about the scandals that drove Andrew Cuomo from office come back over and over again. And while there were some very enthusiastic supporters, there were some people who still were not over what happened with Andrew Cuomo. They felt that he still had not fully accepted responsibility. So again, Andrew Cuomo, he delivered a speech that many people in this room seemed pretty stunned to hear, that he was conceding the race tonight, not even waiting for the ranked choice voting tabulations to happen. And I think there will be some real serious questions asked of this campaign as they, step aside and take a look back. For the most part, they kept Andrew Cuomo away from the public, away from the campaign trail for months. Pretty much the only time we saw Andrew Cuomo was on Sunday mornings when he would speak to black churches. And that was pretty much it. And even as poll numbers showed Zohran Mamdani continuing to narrow the gap, Andrew Cuomo continued with this rose garden strategy. We saw, campaign teams out for Zohran Mamdani, knocking on doors for months to the point where they reached $1 million. We never quite saw that same level of a ground game for Andrew Cuomo, even though, as he says himself, he's been working on campaigns since back when he was in his 20s. So many, many questions that people in this campaign will be thinking about and trying to answer over the next few days. over the next few weeks. But what was a positive tone has certainly shifted after Andrew Cuomo's speech just a short time ago.
Okay, so now, Ayanna, I remember that the county organizations that supported him, the Queens County Organization, the Brooklyn Democratic Organization, the Manhattan Democratic Organization, were those party bosses there standing with him? Were they there, you know, at the end?
Errol, we were hoping to speak with Rodney Bichat. She is, you know, the head of the Brooklyn Democrats, someone who 4 years ago called on Andrew Cuomo to resign, and then 4 years ago was one of the first prominent backers of his campaign for mayor. We were looking for her throughout the evening. I don't think she showed up in this room. So many of the unions that have been behind Andrew Cuomo in recent days, they were not here either. This seemed to mostly be a thank you to the handful of campaign volunteers that have come out for weeks, a thank you to the people who've written checks, but the room never really got quite full the way we expected that it would tonight, the way we were told it might, and the way it's even looked in this room just last night when Andrew Cuomo held a Get Out the Vote rally.
Yeah, it's a very tough business. They can look at the numbers along with the rest of us, and had they gone a different way, believe me, they'd have all been there, crowded up on the stage. Thanks a lot for that, Ayanna. Let's go to Mark Levine. I believe he's addressing his supporters in Manhattan right now.
My passport tonight to be in Manhattan. But look at this coalition, this diverse coalition that Mark Levine has put together. And when you look at what's happening around this country, how our values are under attack, women's rights under attack, LGBTQIA rights under attack, civil rights under attack, women's rights under attack, immigrant rights under attack. We have a comptroller who understands that our diversity is our strength in New York City. And Mark Levine is not new to this. He's been true to this for a long time. Opened a credit union for underserved communities. Was a teacher in the South Bronx. Led the city council's health committee during COVID. He was our Dr. Fauci during COVID. So the math is mathing tonight. We got the right one to be our next fiscal watchdog, and that is none other than Mark Levine. Now, tonight is the beginning, the first step to our victory, because we gotta remember, we gotta get back on those doors because we got an election in November as well.
That's right, that's right.
So we're not gonna take our foot off the pedal. But let me just say this comptroller is gonna make sure that he puts government and helps government function again. He's going to hold agencies responsible who are supposed to deliver for everyday New Yorkers across the country. He's going to use his pension fund to make sure we can build some real affordable housing in the city of New York. And most of all, we know that no matter who the mayor is, Mark Levine is going to hold them accountable.
That's right.
Now, I represent the most diverse county in the United States, Queens. 190 countries, 360 languages and dialects are spoken in Queens. And Mark Levine can speak every one of those languages. So So tonight, our city is united in the fight to make sure that we bring fiscal responsibility, but also that we make this city work for everyday New Yorkers. With that being said, it gives me great honor to introduce our Democratic nominee, my fellow borough president, used to be, but none other, our next comptroller of the city of New York, Mark Levin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my bar mitzvah. We are 5 boroughs now, so I got to do this. Is Queens in the house?
Let's go! Queens get the money.
Give it up for the borough president of the world's borough. Give it up for Donovan Richards, my brother. It's true what they say, Queens gets the money. Is Brooklyn in the house? Brooklyn always has to be loudest. It's very annoying. Is the Boogie Down Bronx in the house? All right, make some noise now. Is Staten Island in the house?
Go.
We won Staten Island, all right?
Go.
And now get ready. Is Manhattan in the house? Yo no hablo los 300 idiomas de Queens, pero hablo 2 o 3. Y quiero que ustedes sepan de lo más profundo de mi corazón cuántos les quiero a ustedes todos. Muchísimas gracias a todos y a todos. Un aplauso, señores. En français aussi. Now, I got some people to thank, but I want to start by acknowledging my incredible family. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing to have my mother, Adele Levine, here.
Let's go.
She's right here.
Let's go, Mom. Let's go, Mom.
She worked the poll site today. We won PS 187 because of my mom. And my amazing family, my wife, Evelise.
Yeah!
My son, Alejandro, star of TV.
Yeah!
My son, Daniel. My sister, Jennifer. None of what I have achieved would be possible without them. I love you all so very, very much. To every one of you in this room who knocked on doors, who worked the phones, who hit the streets, who was a monster on social media, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Have you seen these results?
Yeah.
That's you. That's you. You gave the voters of this city hope that we can build affordable housing, that we can fix the broken mental health system, that we can fight back against the madman in the White House.
Amen.
And we can use this office of comptroller to do it. That was you. You did this. I want to acknowledge this amazing coalition of elected officials out here with me tonight. Give it up for Shaker Krishna and council member from Queens. Give it up for Assembly Member Brian Cunningham. He was out there freezing his you-know-what off on day 1 in December. Give it up for my sister, Linda Lee. Give it up for the leader of the Brooklyn Democratic Party, Assemblymember Rodneyce Bichotte Hermelin.
Mark Levine declaring victory. He's not quite there yet, but he's at 48%. It only takes 50% to win. We may have to wait until next week to make it official, but clearly in the lead. Mark Levine thanking all of his supporters. Let's go to Bobby Kuza, who's at the big board with some results in some surprisingly close city council races.
Yes, some surprisingly close. Some incumbents actually fared better than we thought they would. But let's go to City Council District 2 in Manhattan. This is one we've been telling you about, where Anthony Weiner trying to pull off a miraculous act of political redemption in this race. It did not work out for him, Errol. Anthony Weiner with only 10% of the vote in this primary race, putting him in 4th place. In 1st place is Harvey Epstein, state assembly member, who was generally considered the front runner in this race. Only at 39%, though, so this will go to ranked choice voting, but he is in a good position in this one. Another interesting one is on Manhattan's east side, City Council District 4. This is the Keith Powers seat, so we're talking about East Midtown, Upper East Side. Virginia Maloney is the daughter of longtime Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. This is her first run for public office. She is in 1st place, 26.8%. But this is a crowded race, a number of really viable candidates, pretty impressive credentials. Vanessa Aronson, Rachel Storch, both pretty close behind, 25.5, 22.8. So this is far from over. This will go to ranked choice voting. These numbers will probably shift around. The order could shift around. And also Vanessa Aronson had actually cross-endorsed with Benjamin Wetzler, who's in 4th place. So if his votes go to Vanessa Aronson, that could put her in 1st place. This one could get really interesting next Tuesday, July 1st, when the Board of Elections runs the ranked choice voting tabulation. As we said, incumbents did pretty well. People we thought had tough challenges and might be in trouble did pretty well. Shahana Hanif, I'm talking about Alexei Aviles in Brooklyn, and then in District 48, which is a Republican primary, the incumbent Ina Vernikov is really running away with this race, up 33 points on former Councilman Ari Kagan.
All right. Thanks very much, Bobby. Let's send it over to our Courtney Gross. She's in studio and analyzing tonight's primary election results with a panel of experts. Courtney.
Thank you so much, Errol. We are back with our panel of experts here, our politics panel, to help explain some of these races. Obviously, the mayor's race, we're watching very closely. Democratic consultants Teresa Gonzalez and Stu Lozer are here once again. So, Teresa, let me start with you. Sure. We listened to Andrew Cuomo here. He said Zohran Mamdani won. Apparently, the campaign is telling Ariana Harry that they're going to assess, take a look at these results, perhaps think about what they're going to do in November, but certainly sounded like a concession speech.
It did. You know, I think there's probably a lot of shock right now going through the campaign and through supporters. You know, we all kind of suspected things were moving in this direction, but there's always there's no way he's not going to win kind of conversation. So there's probably a lot of processing that's happening, but it certainly did sound like a concession speech. And I think, you know, he's leaving it open to saying, I need to kind of review where things are. Whether he actually runs on an independent line is the other question here.
Yes, Stu, I mean, you can remember back in 2002, he was running for governor. He bowed out of that race for governor. So this is Andrew Cuomo's biggest loss, first loss, potentially. I mean, do you see him coming back and running in November after being damaged like this?
Look, I heard him speak about his campaign in the past tense tonight. I heard him do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I feel for Rich. I feel for the other flacks who are trying to argue otherwise. And I don't know what the governor's views are. I don't know if he's going to come back. I don't have any inside information, but I heard him talk in the past tense. So that I thought was telling.
So we're obviously going to be watching this, looking at the ranked choice voting results that come out on Tuesday. Zohran Mamdani clearly in a very good position. We are waiting for him to come out and speak to this crowd that he has assembled in Long Island City. So we'll obviously go to that as soon as we have it. But let's think about November. Let's start thinking about, you know, the future. What is this race going to look like? I think I mentioned it earlier. I can imagine one of the people that is celebrating here today is Eric Adams. Eric Adams went and voted today in the Democratic primary. He's obviously still a registered Democrat, saying that he voted for himself 5 times. I will take him at his word. Maybe he voted for himself. It wouldn't surprise me if he was hoping, crossing his fingers, and praying that Zohran Mamdani was the person who would pull out a win tonight, because I think this helps Eric Adams, very much so, in the November general election.
I think that, and I also think, you know, it might have been you, Sue, I was talking to about this. He's been working very quietly behind the scenes, right? If you've noticed, there's been a change in tenor at City Hall. Things feel like they're working and processing the way they're supposed to. There's been a pullback on drama, although I will say there's a lot of drama around kind of reporters and that interaction. But in terms of like his management style and him as a mayor, it feels like a little bit of a cleanup job. So my question then becomes, is that applauding for November in a way that would actually push him ahead and get a second term?
I mean, Stu, you're familiar with the business community. What is the business community going to do now? Well, clearly, they were very much behind Andrew Cuomo and this Fix the City super PAC. I mean, are they going to turn all of a sudden, hold their nose and say they're going to start supporting Eric Adams again?
They have not made that decision yet. There was 25 minutes between our first panel and our second panel, and I fielded 3 calls in that time. They do not know. The business leaders do not know. And that was before Andrew Cuomo spoke about his campaign either dropping out or not dropping out. Sort of the Schrodinger cat of campaigns right now. I think people do not know. They're going to look to Eric Adams. And Eric Adams is coming in to the campaign, I've said it in other places, with a strong base of support among black New Yorkers and a strong base of support among black hat-wearing Orthodox Jewish New Yorkers. Black people, black hats, that's a pretty good combination to start off of.
So one of the ballot lines, the mayor has 2 ballot lines, or at least he petitioned for 2 ballot lines. There's just dispute between the Board of Elections, and it's under our understanding that sometime this week we're potentially going to see a rally from Mayor Adams kicking off his general election campaign and a decision on one of those ballot lines in which he is going to run. The Board of Elections says he can only run on one. One of those ballot lines is end anti-Semitism. You were talking about Orthodox Jewish voters in Brooklyn obviously supporting him, and so much of the primary campaign was attacking Zohran Mamdani for potentially being or allegedly being anti-Semitic. How do you think that narrative, Stu, will play out in the November general election?
Look, my understanding I didn't check these numbers myself, but I've asked people who watch these carefully. Andrew Cuomo did phenomenally well in neighborhoods like Borough Park. But of course, as a percentage of the vote, but also as turnout. And if he's not going to be in the ballot in November, that means there's an awful lot of voters who are theoretically up for grabs. Now, what does up for grabs mean? Are they really going to vote for Zohran Mamdani? You know, I would think not. But, you know,
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, Teresa, do you think that Mamdani needs to do some rehabbing of his image with Jewish voters in particular? I mean, you know, at the end of the campaign, Cuomo really hit him on the fact that he would not condemn the language of globalize the Intifada. And Mamdani's response to that is, I'm not going to be the language police. I don't want to get into Trump territory where I'm, you know, messing with the First Amendment and telling people what they can and cannot say. But obviously to a lot of Jewish New Yorkers, they think that phrase is condemning violence, and not condemning the phrase is hurtful to them. Do you think that there is any way he can rehab his image with Jewish voters in particular?
Look, I actually think that this idea that he is in big trouble and needs to do that is a bit overblown. I think that a lot of it was campaign rhetoric. I think he actually has a lot of support with Jewish voters. Now, what portion of the Jewish vote he has is the question here, but I think that this kind of idea that he has so much work to do with the Jewish community because he has 0 support there and everybody thinks he's an anti-Semite is completely overblown. The rhetoric has actually worked to make all of us believe that.
I think I agree and I disagree. Look, if you look at the neighborhoods that the Assemblyman did really well in, that Assemblyman Mamdani did really well in, these are neighborhoods that have significant Jewish support. They are neighborhoods in which Democratic primary voters are significant. Working families and the progressive movement in general has a lot of Jewish members. So it's a duality here. There are certainly thousands and thousands, tens of thousands. I mean, we can see the vote now. There's 427,000 people who voted for them. Well over 100,000 Jewish New Yorkers voted for the Assemblyman. So it's hard to argue unilaterally. That said, as a whole, Jewish New Yorkers feel anti-Semitism in a way that they've never felt in their lifetime. Any of us who are under the age of 85 have never felt in our lifetime. And so far, he hasn't delivered. Doesn't mean he can't. Doesn't mean he won't. Doesn't mean he won't be making moves to do that in the next day, week, or month. But like, again, getting back to your original question of Eric Adams, he has never wavered in his support for the Jewish community, and that's a kind of investment that you can get return on.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if Eric Adams, especially after tonight's results, ends up going with the End Anti-Semitism ballot line when it comes to the November general election. That being said, is it fair to say that Zohran Mamdani is going into this general election as the front runner here? I mean, we are obviously a majority Democratic voter city. Yeah. But we have never had a Democratic socialist on the Democratic primary line. He's most likely going to have the Working Families Party line as well. I mean, can we say that he is the front runner?
We haven't had for all the contested elections that we've had under Mike Bloomberg and under other people, under Rudy Giuliani, we've never had an election that wasn't a binary choice between two people since 1977. That was so long ago. How long ago was that? That was so long ago that Andrew Cuomo was a 19-year-old Nepo baby, too young to drink legally, running his father's campaign. That's how old. The man we just saw, who may or may not have conceded, that he was 19 years old the last time this happened. That was a really long time ago, and we're going to have at least a three-way race. It's just to say, if it is the Assemblyman Mamdani and a Republican nominee and Eric Adams, at least plus an independent
Jim Walden.
Yeah. So it's at least a four-way race, and a Republican walks in with 30% of the vote. 30% of the vote in a four-way race with no runoffs, and where it's just the first person theoretically past 25% could win.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is you do not need 51% of the vote here. No. This isn't ranked choice voting. Viewers at home, this is not ranked choice voting when it comes to the November general election. It is just whoever gets the most amount of votes. And with four people in the race, potentially Andrew Cuomo, we'll see if he ends up, if Andrew Cuomo ends up in this race, it's obviously going to complicate matters that much further. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate all of your insight and analysis. Errol, let's send it back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Courtney. If you are just joining us as we come up on the 11 o'clock hour, we have been covering all of the results coming in on this primary night. In fact, right now it is 11 p.m. and Zohran Mamdani is on the verge of a major political upset. Andrew Cuomo said earlier in a speech to his supporters that he called Mamdani to congratulate him on his victory. Zohran Mamdani is ahead by a little more than 7 points, but he would still need more than 50% to officially clinch the nomination. That may not become official until next week when ranked choice voting is calculated. Meanwhile, in the race for city controller, Mark Levine has declared victory. He's just shy of the 50% threshold as well. Joining me now to break all of this down is our Bobby Kuza. He's at the big board. And Bobby, show us what it is looking like.
I mean, the truth is the numbers haven't changed all that much. I mean, we've been talking about this throughout the night. The fact that we expected the initial tally just after 9 o'clock to favor Zohran Mamdani because we knew he did well with the early vote, with the mail-in vote, and that's what we were going to see at first when the first sort of tranche of data came in shortly after 9 o'clock. And sure enough, when that data came in, Zohran Mamdani was up by 9 points. So it looked like maybe he had an early lead, but that lead was going to shrink over the course of the night as the day of vote came in, which we thought was going to favor Andrew Cuomo. It turns out that's not really what happened at all. He started with a 9-point lead, and it is down now to what? Just 7.1. His lead hardly shrank at all, and so this really defied our expectations. I mean, earlier I was talking about the sort of trajectory that Zohran Mamdani has been on these last few months. If you look at the polls from Emerson College, he went from 1% of the vote in February to 10% in March, 22% in May, 32% in June, and now he's at 43.5%. Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo, his numbers have been pretty static. He was a known quantity. I mean, Andrew Cuomo had 100% name recognition among the Democratic primary electorate. People knew whether they liked Andrew Cuomo or whether they didn't like Andrew Cuomo. And in fact, some of those same polls showed that Andrew Cuomo's unfavorability numbers were around 47%. So you already had a good chunk of the electorate that was probably not going to come out and turn out for Andrew Cuomo. And so the rest of the primary electorate was sort of up for grabs, and it just seemed like Zohran Mamdani was taking a larger and larger share of that as people got to know him and his campaign and his policies. So now he's up 7 points. We don't see that number changing very much. Most of the vote count, most of the votes are accounted for at this point. And if anything, we have to assume that that lead is going to grow next Tuesday when the ranked choice voting tabulation is performed. So at this point, even though ranked choice will play a factor in the final tally of this race. The race is, for all intents and purposes, has been decided tonight on primary night itself, which is not how we thought things were going to go. We thought we were going to sort of be left up in the air at the end of the night tonight, and, you know, in a state of suspended animation, waiting to see what would happen a week from now. And things have played out very differently, really an unexpected turn of events here tonight in the city.
Yeah, and of course, Andrew Cuomo is one of the most experienced politicians in New York, and he sized up the situation and decided to make a phone call to Zohran Mamdani, jump up on stage. He kind of caught us all off guard, including some of his staff, and just basically conceded. So he's seen enough that he doesn't think that gap is going to get closed.
Right. I mean, we're not calling the race. We're not saying it's over. But Andrew Cuomo got up on stage and basically conceded it for us with really a degree of humility that I don't think most of us were necessarily expecting to hear from Andrew Cuomo. I mean, there's been so much talk in the lead up to tonight of what was going to happen in November. If Zohran Mamdani won, could he still win in November with Andrew Cuomo running and potentially, you know, eating up a larger share of the vote in a general election, running on an independent line? Now, you know, we have to sit down and figure out whether Andrew Cuomo is even going to run in November. That seems increasingly unlikely, although we can't say for sure what direction he's going to decide to go. So it may be that not only do we get a clear picture of who's going to win the primary tonight, that we may actually get a pretty good picture tonight of what the field is going to look like heading into November. So that was not the speech we expected Andrew Cuomo to make tonight. And of course, we're still waiting to hear from Zohran Mamdani. I think it's going to be a pretty jubilant scene when we head out to Long Island City to hear from him.
And Bobby, that map behind you is not just pretty colors. We're going to do detailed analysis tomorrow, but you can give us some sense of where Mamdani did especially well as the votes rolled in today.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, we'll see people do the more detailed breakdown by assembly district and so forth. This is just borough-wide numbers. Looks a little bit like an Irish flag here, but the orange is for Zohran. And if you look at Brooklyn, that's where, you know, he really runs up the score, about a 17-point delta there in Brooklyn. We expected Mamdani to do well there. We weren't sure about the other boroughs. I mean, Queens was a borough where it looked like Cuomo could perform well. Instead, Mamdani winning Queens by about 8 points. Of course, the vote tally is not complete. Manhattan winning by about 6 points. And Andrew Cuomo did win, as expected, in the Bronx and on Staten Island. But again, Bronx and Staten Island do not account for much of the overall vote when we're talking about a Democratic primary. Something like 21%, I believe. I had that number earlier. So you're not getting very far just winning the Bronx and Staten Island, and Zohran Mamdani took all three of the city's biggest boroughs.
Right. Those are two of the smallest boroughs, and so that's not obviously not going to get you but so far. One of the other factors, of course, Bobby, we were talking about this a little bit earlier with the special panel, is that there are groups, and South Asian New Yorkers in particular, that are becoming politically active, getting organized, and they had a special sort of pride for their favorite son, Zohran Mamdani, of course, coming out of that community in Queens. We're going to, when the dust settles, start seeing, I think, some new political players and some new communities that have to be taken into account in the power grid of New York.
Yeah, South Asian communities. And, you know, we haven't talked a whole lot about Zohran Mamdani's faith. I mean, the fact that he is a Muslim, is going to be the first Muslim major party candidate in New York City for mayor. And did he activate those voters in a way that maybe wasn't necessarily expected? We heard about volunteers from the Mamdani campaign who were visiting mosques in recent days. And, you know, maybe that turnout could have been impactful in this race as well. But we're really seeing a resorting of the demographic picture and what we were expecting to see tonight. It'll also be interesting to get a better handle on which way the Hispanic vote went, right? That's something where Zohran Mamdani, it looked, was losing that demographic to Andrew Cuomo by a pretty sizable margin. And then he seemed to have closed that margin in recent days, at least according to some of the polling out there. But certainly, he performed a lot better in all the demographics where he thought he wasn't going to perform well in order to put up these kind of numbers.
Yes, indeed. In fact, Emerson College, I guess, which has to be counted as one of the winners, had that last poll that showed him kind of closing the gap, and it turned out, we now know that those numbers were certainly accurate and indeed predictive, which not all polls can be, but that final poll gave us a snapshot and some insight into what we're seeing here now tonight. So you also looked at the controller's race, and we heard a little while ago from Mark Levine, who has not sealed the deal just yet, but is closing in on 50%.
Right. I mean, we're going to see this happen in a few races where the leader is going to come very close to 50%. Technically, can't be declared the winner because they will have to run the numbers next Tuesday. But for all intents and purposes, a race like this one, where Mark Levine is at 48% and has a 15-point lead on Justin Brannan, for all intents and purposes, this race is over. And, you know, it might be the same situation in a race like Manhattan Borough President. I haven't looked at this one in a while. I don't know whether Brad Holman-Siegel is at 50%, 48.8. So here's another one. He's up by 10 points on Keith Powers. I don't think Keith Powers really has a path to victory in this one, but nonetheless, we'll have to wait until next Tuesday when they run the numbers to get a final tally on that one and for him to be officially crowned the winner.
You know, going back to the top race for mayor, there was so much advertising in the last weeks. There was so much messaging that was saying that Mamdani was not just the best, not a good choice or a bad choice, but they were saying an unthinkable choice, right? The New York Times editorial board said he does not deserve a place on your ballot at all, and yet the voters had something very different to say.
I mean, this was a classic case of the establishment, thinking one way, and the electorate having a very different idea of the direction that they wanted this city to go in. And, I mean, there's so many of the obvious, comparisons. We saw it on the debate stage when New York 1 held our debate just a couple of weeks ago, when you see Zoran Mamdani at 33 years old, and you contrast him with Andrew Cuomo, obviously more experienced, would have been the oldest mayor to ever take over City Hall in the city's history. And so the contrast was really stark, and I think was what drove a lot of the interest that we saw in this race, nationwide, international interest. And I think the interest is only going to grow now that people have seen the direction that voters want to go in the city based on the election results tonight.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Bobby. Let's go out to the Zoran Mamdani campaign in Long Island City. That's where Bernadette Hogan is at. Basically the happiest party in New York City tonight. How's it looking there, Bernadette?
On the board, the chyron that says Andrew Cuomo calls Zoran Mamdani to congratulate him. Now, if you look at the trajectory of this campaign, I've covered Mamdani since he was in the state assembly, his 2 terms. If you asked me, or if you asked anybody about a year ago if tonight would be a possibility, I mean, again, you looked at the field of individuals, those that were running. Andrew Cuomo was not yet in the race. Definitely tonight is something that was unexpected. But if you talk to some of the supporters here, those that have worked on the campaign, those who are progressives, they say that they took some of the lessons that they learned, talking about affordability, about housing, the need for public safety, for education, and how that really translated to voters in the general election that brought us Donald Trump, his 2nd term in the White House. They said, well, listen, we've got a different vision for this. And what's interesting, Errol, is those conversations are what's going on at the state level as well. Although, again, Governor Kathy Hochul and the state legislature, one could argue, are not as left-leaning, not as progressive as Zoran Mamdani. But, again, we're waiting for him to come out, waiting to hear what he has to say, because he did not get above that 50% threshold in the ranked choice contest. So we still have to see what the mail-in ballot be successful in the near future.
Okay, so now, Bernadette, the crowd that's there, I see a lot of people who appear to be campaign workers, but are there elected officials there as well? He did have some supporters from the traditional political establishment.
Yes, and actually, Tyler, my photographer, show over my shoulder who is here. You might be able to point out a couple of faces. We have State Senator John Liu, who is a prominent name in the Asian American community. He also ran for mayor and was almost successful. You also have State Senator Gustavo Rivera from the Bronx, and you have a couple other people that have been coming in and out. Chiose, city councilman, who, of course, has endorsed Mamdani. But, you know, one thing that the Mamdani campaign has talked about is this army of volunteers, right? Over 40,000 people door knocking out in the streets, even in the over 95-degree weather, coming out. And, you know, when I asked somebody who was just with me who works on the campaign, they say, look, I mean, people were excited for this campaign as opposed to Andrew Cuomo, where, and of course this is coming out of the mouths of Mamdani supporters, you know, as opposed to Andrew Cuomo, where a lot of money was spent on behalf of this campaign, but they might not have had the same type of enthusiasm on the ground.
And so, Bernadette, you're on a rooftop there, right? You're out there in the open air. It's pretty hot from what we see on our weather ticker. It's over 90 degrees.
It's pretty hot. There's a bit of a breeze. You know, New York won. We got our own spot right close to the edge. Not too close, though, because actually the campaign was worried about the overcrowding on this rooftop and possible safety concerns. But don't worry, we're safe. And it is pretty hot. They've got some fans going, but I've got to say, the people behind me, they said that they would come out no matter what, even if there was not this heat wave. But hopefully I'm not sweating too much on air for you.
If you head over to the bar, they may have some ice over there for you. Thanks, Bernadette. So Courtney Gross, I mean, look, this is a transformational, it's a change election. There's new groups coming to prominence. There's the youth vote. There's a lot of different storylines going on here. One of them, of course, being the evident weakness of the county organizations who failed to deliver for their guy, Andrew Cuomo.
Was this, I think both can be true at the same time, where was this a very weak candidate who was driven from office because of sexual harassment allegations? Is it the end of a political dynasty? Is this a victory for the Me Too movement? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this race, but you also have to give a lot of credit to Zohran Mamdani and his effective way of communicating with voters and clearly touching the hearts, the minds, the movement of people in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan. I mean, we went over the borough numbers before, and we should take a look closer at them to see if those trends are continuing. And this is a very historic moment. We were talking in the control room just a short time ago of, can you recall a bigger upset? And I was like, oh, what about Scott Stringer and Elliot Spitzer? But that was different. We're talking about Andrew Cuomo, who up until a week ago was inevitably going to be the next mayor of New York City and had tons of money. $25 million the business community, from Trump supporters to Michael Bloomberg, were supporting Andrew Cuomo through a massive super PAC that had historic amounts of money, unprecedented amounts of money being poured into this campaign, not only to prop up Andrew Cuomo, but to tear down Zohran Mamdani. We talked about those advertisements extensively on Inside City Hall and on New York One, and potentially, you know, whether they were Islamophobic, whether they darkened his beard. That didn't matter. There were clearly hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers in Brooklyn and elsewhere who are so jazzed and excited about this particular candidate, who really think are offering concrete solutions to the problems facing New Yorkers. It is clear that this campaign was not a dark message of Andrew Cuomo and about crime and scary things happening in New York City, but it was about affordability and how New Yorkers want to see the direction of their city moving forward. I think back to the New York Times endorsement. It wasn't an endorsement, it was a tearing down of Zohran Mamdani. And I think those of us who live in New York City and who cover New York City extensively, the dark picture that even the New York Times was portraying was something that may not be that familiar to a lot of people. There are crime numbers, there are serious problems facing New York City. There is a mental health crisis. There's a serious issue of homeless people experiencing homelessness on the subway. Nonetheless, the vision of hope and honestly, just like the different type of vision that Zohran Mamdani was putting out there was clearly resonating.
Okay. Let's go back to Zohran Mamdani's campaign headquarters, where he is, I believe Bernadette has Ali Najmi, the election attorney, a very prominent activist in his own right there.
That's right, Errol. I've got Ali Najmi with me, who you're the numbers guy. Tell us a little bit about what you and the campaign were looking at when you were trying to figure out a path to victory. Break it down for me. Don't make it too complicated.
Well, I'm the attorney. There's a lot smarter number guys in this campaign, but one thing that this election result shows is we brought out new voters, people who don't regularly vote in this primary. I think the percentage of zero prime voters in early vote was 25%. I think that carried through in this election. We changed the electorate. Zohran Mamdani inspired new voters to come to this election.
How were you able to target people that had not come out to vote? Were these people that were not registered as, oh, they're cheering for you. Everybody's watching New York 1 right now, or else they're cheering for him. But how were you able to convince people to sign up to register as Democrats, or were these Democrats that had not voted in past elections because maybe they were disillusioned by the candidates that were on the ballot?
These are, by and large, Democrats who were ignored, alienated. This has been a 10-year project. Zohran Mamdani was a volunteer on my 2015 council campaign in Queens, New York. 10 years we've been working on this project of turning these voters, activating them, bringing them to the table, and we want to thank everybody who voted in this election.
So who are these voters that you say were forgotten about? Talk to me about Zohran Mamdani would be the first Asian and African, or no, first Asian mayor, correct? He's also Ugandan. But talk to me about that South Asian vote and bringing that out, the historical significance of this, because you also saw Mayor Eric Adams bring out a chunk of those voters in 2021.
I'm also the co-founder of the Muslim Democratic Club in New York. Zohran Mamdani was a former board member of the Muslim Democratic Club in New York. And the Muslim American community of New York City has played a pivotal role in this campaign from its inception to Election Day. And a lot of those new voters are Muslim voters.
And if Mamdani is elected, he would be the first Muslim mayor of New York City. What does that mean for a city like New York, which, again, just the long relationship between, just look at 9/11, right? And the way the Muslim community was treated after 9/11. What do you think this says about the city at this point in time?
I think today's election result shows New York City loves Muslims, and Zohran Mamdani loves everybody in New York City.
Now, the criticism also about Mamdani's position on Israel, the way he's about certain phrases that have been described as very hurtful to the Jewish community. Andrew Cuomo's campaign and Whitney Tilson's campaign, two of the opponents, were pouring money into ads that were criticizing Mamdani. What do you make of Mamdani's statements? Did that resonate with voters? And also, how should he continue to talk about this issue over the next couple of weeks and months?
I think a lot of that was distorted. I think a lot of that was falsified, manipulated. What's clear from tonight's election result, he has broad-based support. And let me tell you, starting tomorrow, we're going to reach out to every significant member of the Jewish community, every rabbi, everybody. He is going to be a mayor for all New Yorkers, including Jewish New Yorkers.
What's the plan now? Like you just said, starting tomorrow, because we don't have the election results in yet. You're going into a general. You'll be facing Eric Adams, who is the incumbent. He's running as an independent. He is the opposite of Zohran Mamdani when it comes to most policies. And actually, when Adams was asked about this at a City Hall briefing a couple of weeks ago, he said he knows what Mamdani stands for. How do you think that the Adams team is thinking right now, and what's your strategy to take him on?
I want Eric Adams and his entire campaign to understand this. You are not ready for us.
How come? What's the ground game?
We have the best candidate, the most compelling candidate. Look at our broad-based results. We're going to bring voters from all over the place.
And do you think that Mamdani's association with the Democratic Socialists of America and those policies, right, that, just to paraphrase, the dismantling of capitalism, previously he's had the statements that were pro-defund the police. Do you think any of that will come up to hurt him?
You have to separate the DSA's policy agenda and Zohran Mamdani's campaign policies. They're two different things. He is a member of DSA. He's inspired by DSA. DSA helped us in this victory. They're our muscle. All the great volunteers are largely from DSA. But if you look at the Democratic nominee, Zohran Mamdani's mission and statement and values and policies, they have a broad appeal to all New Yorkers.
Now, We heard from some of the other candidates on the Working Families Party slate. Brad Lander, Zellner Myrie. Do you think that any of those names would be welcome in a Mamdani administration in City Hall?
I think so, absolutely. I don't want to speak about something I'm not authorized to speak about, but I'm sure that Zohran Mamdani has a plan for who's going to be in his cabinet, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see those names in that cabinet.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Continue to talk. So Errol covered a lot. That was Zohran Mamdani's election attorney, and who's been with him for the past 10 years. And again, just describing some of the dynamics going into the planning for this race and some of the field operation and what we might expect to see going forward. Back to you.
It was really notable, Bernadette, and, you know, sort of making some news there that they plan to reach out to Jewish organizations all around the city starting tomorrow.
Right, of course, especially because, Errol, this past week and last week, Mamdani was criticized for utilizing some phrases that are deemed as hurtful to the Jewish community. And it's also a topic that Andrew Cuomo and Whitney Tilson have continued to hammer Mamdani on and criticize him on. Fix the City, the super PAC that received millions of dollars to spend pushing Cuomo's campaign and against Mamdani's campaign, really were hinging on that message. But clearly from the preliminary results tonight that we're looking at, it appears that Mamdani's broader message, perhaps, which is what the campaign was trying to, you know, make the argument about all along. They said, listen, we might have a message on Israel, but look at what our plan is on affordability, on housing, and those are the things that are speaking to New Yorkers, and that's also the narrative that the campaign was trying to continue to push forward, which arguably is less divisive than weighing into Middle East politics.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks very much, Bernadette. Let's check in with Ayanna Harry. She's been covering Andrew Cuomo's campaign tonight, and she's still there at the headquarters. Ayanna, what is next for Andrew Cuomo?
Errol, that is a great question, and the real question tonight is whether or not this is going to be the end of Andrew Cuomo's political future. While he has earned a reputation for a style of politics that at times could be described as combative, Andrew Cuomo took a very different tone in what his campaign is now confirming as a concession speech tonight, and he, you know, spoke about calling Zohran Mamdani to congratulate him. He said it's Zohran's night and he deserved it. Here's a bit more from Andrew Cuomo's speech.
Tonight was not our night. Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night, and he put together a great campaign, and he touched young people and inspired them and moved them and got them to come out and vote. And he really ran a highly impactful campaign. I called him, I congratulated him, I applaud him sincerely for his effort, and let's give him a round of applause and thank him for his campaign.
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo's concession speak, the end of what started off as an optimistic night but ended as a pretty somber night here in the West Village. Cuomo campaign tells me that he will take some time, analyze all of the numbers once they're in, and then decide whether or not he will choose to run on an independent ballot line in November. But from what I'm hearing from my sources inside the campaign, it's sounding pretty unlikely that Andrew Cuomo will continue to run in November. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. No final decision has been made yet. And I've been talking about all of the unanswered questions. I will note some of the high-profile supporters that back Andrew Cuomo's campaign. We're talking about people who 4 years ago called him to resign and then endorsed him. People who 4 years ago were supporting Eric Adams and his bid for mayor, and then they supported Andrew Cuomo. What will happen with those people? Will they, if Andrew Cuomo doesn't run in November, will they in turn support Eric Adams and his campaign? Could Andrew Cuomo, if he steps out of this race, give new life to Eric Adams and his independent bid for City Hall? That's some of the talk that I heard around the room this evening as folks all filed out. And still, you know, people thinking about beginning to process what happened during this campaign, whether or not Andrew Cuomo had the level of visibility that really needed to help him, or did in some ways the campaign treat his win as inevitable until the last few days, really? You know, we saw folks from Zohran Mamdani's campaign out and canvassing, you know, going back months, Errol. I recall being at a church for a story back in March in Queens, and the bishop asking me, who is this Zohran Mamdani guy that I keep hearing about? And we're beginning to hear from within the Cuomo campaign some acknowledgement that, you know, they perhaps were not out there with the kind of visibility that they could have had over the last few months. Largely, we saw Andrew Cuomo speaking on Sunday mornings at churches, but really not spending time going out at subway stations and other places to really get his message across to voters. So, you know, as I can hear, it's a pretty loud and excited and happy and joyful atmosphere, it sounds like, at the Mamdani campaign. As soon as Andrew Cuomo gave his speech and he left the stage with this close group of supporters, the people in this room filed out. But again, I can think about so many people who endorsed him, from Congressman Adriano Espaillat to Rotnice Burchard Hermelin, the head of the Brooklyn Democrats. Those people, they were not in this room tonight. So perhaps that's even an indication that they knew going into this evening that the numbers were not going to be looking good, Errol.
Okay. Thanks very much, Ayanna. Great reporting tonight. And Courtney Gross here with me in the studio. We see on the split screen there, it looks like at the Zohran Mamdani's headquarters, Brad Lander just arrived, one of his rivals. They had a cross-endorsement arrangement, and he was greeted with a round of applause, hands in the air, people very glad to see him, and he seems to be giving an interview there right now.
Yep, and I can see his campaign manager. I can see another Democratic consultant from the de Blasio administration era, and then I also saw Cynthia Nixon, who we know has been posting on Instagram and other social media for people to not rank Andrew Cuomo. I mean, we can go back to the 2018 gubernatorial primary, where she obviously challenged the governor at the time. I think I got about 34% of the vote to Andrew Cuomo's 66% of the vote. So you can see, to me, I look at this party, and this is a working families party now. This is a working families party, actually. And, you know, clearly they are celebrating. We were talking earlier about how Andrew Cuomo tried to destroy the Working Families Party a number of years ago. There's a certain amount of signatures that these third parties need to acquire in a governor's race in order to keep their ballot line, and he increased the number of signatures that you needed, trying to basically kill the Working Families Party. And tonight, you know, they are clearly, is this payback? I'm not sure, but it certainly looks like it for them.
Well, I mean, even beyond that, I mean, it looks in a lot of ways like Andrew Cuomo was sort of an organizing principle that a lot of different people really turned their campaign into an anti-Cuomo campaign. Very striking in the closing days of the campaign. Apparently $100,000 was spent by Zelnor Myrie just to run ads every 30 minutes or twice an hour, whatever it was, on black radio, directed at black voters, saying what you may not remember about Andrew Cuomo, and then boom, 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 attack after attack after attack.
And Brad Lander's final television ad, which I think they spent about $300K on, didn't even mention Brad Lander by name until the very end, where it said paid for by Brad Lander. It was simply just an attack ad against Andrew Cuomo. I think we saw, going from the cross endorsement of Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander that occurred about 2 weeks or so ago, to the final 2 weeks of the campaign, that the left, we've been talking about this for months, is would the left coalesce? How would they strategize with ranked choice voting? We saw that a little bit in 2021 when Andrew Yang ended up endorsing Catherine Garcia, which clearly helped her in 2021, not to overtake Eric Adams, but helped her get in that second place position and set 7,000 votes away from taking Eric Adams, the mayoralty, from him. And clearly, I think we haven't seen the ranked choice voting simulation just yet, but I think in the final weeks of the campaign, we clearly saw the left coalesce on a cohesive message, which was, no matter what you feel about the rest of the field, whoever you decide to rank, just don't put Andrew Cuomo on your ballot.
Right, and what's interesting is that this sort of coalescing was among people who are elected officials and really know politics. They really know the game. They know how to buy ads and place ads and really focus their message. And there was a certain amount of that was really very notable, because all of the people you're talking about are elected officials, right? Brad Lander, Zelnor Myrie, Adrienne Adams, had a very emotional press conference where it was basically devoted to attacking Andrew Cuomo. So he inspired all of that, sort of energy, and in some cases vitriol. And in the end, I guess it all worked to Zoran Mamdani's advantage.
Absolutely. His unfavorables going into this race, Andrew Cuomo's unfavorables, were north of 50%. And that was clearly what did him in, is that, you know, he had a certain number, a certain percentage of voters who clearly thought that he deserved a second chance and that he has a lot of progressive, you know, things on his agenda that he was able to accomplish, or progressive accomplishments that he did while he was governor, you know, increasing the minimum wage, same-sex marriage. There's, you know, the bridges. We can count the amount of bridges, the LaGuardia Airport. There's certainly a lot of that Andrew Cuomo did.
Sure.
But clearly, the damage his career did, the sexual harassment scandal, clearly COVID, we can debate his leadership over COVID. It meant that voters were never, well, not never, but were certainly couldn't get over those particular aspects of his career.
Right. And Bobby Coos, I won't ask you to pull up a bunch of numbers, but I'd like some analysis if you don't mind. I mean, this in a lot of ways was about the past versus the future, right? I mean, Andrew Cuomo can claim to be a lot of things, but he can't claim to be a fresh new face on the scene for Democratic politics.
Right, and I mean, I think the problem was he presented that as a strength, right? The fact that he's been around for a long time, he has the experience and pointed to what he has done, whereas Zoran Mamdani was pointing to what he will do, what he wants to do. It was more of a forward-looking vision, and in the end, I guess that's what ended up winning out. I mean, I was thinking for months when it seemed like Andrew Cuomo was going to get into this race and it was clear that he would have a lot of support, I was wondering whether once people were reminded of his past controversies, whether that was, you know, immediately going to put a dent in his numbers, that people would remember the controversies of Cuomo's past and realize that they didn't want to relive those again with him in City Hall. That did not happen initially. In fact, we saw many dozens of elected officials who had been calling for Andrew Cuomo to step down as governor just 4 years ago, right? Now, not only not opposing him running for the mayor of New York City, but actually endorsing him to run for mayor in many of those cases. So I was waiting for that mood to sort of shift, and it didn't happen at first. But it seems like it happened just in the last few weeks when people really started to pay attention to this race. I mean, now looking back over the past few months, there was this air of inevitability around Andrew Cuomo. But maybe one of the things we didn't really account for was the number of undecided voters. It seemed like those voters were up for grabs and that they could end up going to Andrew Cuomo. But in the end, it seems that those undecided voters almost entirely went to Zoran Mamdani because they were people who were looking for something else. So I think you're right. There are two very different visions. One very much forward-looking. One, in a lot of ways, was sort of backward-looking. And I think we saw that generational divide, right? I mean, we saw this again and again with poll numbers. We saw voters under 45 or under 50 supported Zoran Mamdani by something like 2 to 1. Then we saw older voters overwhelmingly going to Andrew Cuomo. So we saw, you know, we were all waiting to see on Election Day whether the turnout was going to be driven by young people, by new voters, people who were either newly registered or were voting for the first time. And it'll take a while to figure out, you know, how the numbers shake out, how many of these were new voters, or whether it was just that, you know, voting patterns had shifted compared to 2021. But clearly there was something happening here, whether it was just the way when people were deciding to vote, whether it was, you know, again, a shift in voting patterns, or whether these were new people that he managed to activate in a way that hadn't been done before. And so he was really able to achieve something tonight that none of us were expecting. I mean, we've been telling people for the last few days, and including earlier tonight, we weren't going to know a winner by the end of the night. We were sort of conditioning people to be prepared for this idea that things were going to be up in the air, and we're going to have to wait until next Tuesday when the ranked choice tabulation would be run to know who was going to emerge as the winner in this race. And even though Zoran Mamdani is not at 50%, he's still 6.5 points short of 50%. At this point, there's really no denying the fact that he is going to be the Democratic nominee for mayor.
For viewers who may be joining us for the first time, we are going to hear from Zoran Mamdani in just a few minutes, and of course we'll bring that to you live. Right now I'm talking with our Bobby Kuza and with Courtney Gross about what all of this means as we try and piece this together. And looking on social media, I've already seen there are some national Democrats. I think Dan Pfeiffer was one of them. There are people who have run national campaigns who are saying, look, this is a national issue. What the Democratic Party stands for, who gets involved, whose voices are heard, whether or not young people need more of a prominent voice, whether or not the old guard needs to step out the way. All of these questions are now on the table.
I mean, we obviously saw that with the campaign just last year with Joe Biden. I mean, there was not enthusiasm around the candidacy of Joe Biden, and there is a reason why Donald Trump is in the White House right now, is because the Democratic Party continues to go kind of with the old guard. I mean, we saw that Bernie Sanders was obviously incredibly popular with so many people in previous primaries, but never was able to get over the hurdle of actually becoming the nominee. Zohran Mamdani is endorsed by Bernie Sanders. Does the Democratic Party all of a sudden throw out the paper and, you know, tear it up and say, okay, we need to go with a socialist now because this is where the energy and the enthusiasm of the Democratic Party is? I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are touring the country and gaining thousands of people to watch them about their policy agenda, which is obviously very similar to Zohran Mamdani's.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be assembling a coalition of sorts. And again, people are already starting the process of drawing maps, looking at the data, looking at the assembly districts. Jacob Kornblue, who's a prominent journalist who focuses on the Orthodox community, says that Zohran Mamdani did very, very well in, Midwood, down there in an Orthodox community. And so, we don't know what we're going to see, but young people, students, college graduates, you heard Ali Najmi, a little bit of bravado, but he said, speaking to the sitting mayor, Eric Adams, he says, you're not ready for us.
Or it's just about the message. Mamdani had a clear message, and instead of running on a campaign that was potentially would have worked for Andrew Cuomo in 2021 when crime was at the forefront of many people's minds, Mamdani came to the table, came to this campaign trail with a very cohesive, simple message. Freeze the rent, universal child care. These were items that people said, oh, I want that. And a lot of people could contend, and I'm sure we're going to hear this in the general election narrative, that these are empty promises and that he wants to raise taxes, including the corporate tax rate and taxes on millionaires that is going to be a non-starter in Albany. But it was a message that people understood. It was sellable, cohesive. You could name very quickly, you could say, what was Brad Lander running on?
Sure.
Well, he wanted to end homelessness. The primary tenet of his campaign was ending mental health homelessness for people on the subway, which is a mouthful and not necessarily something that anyone is going to remember. Right. What is Zohran Mamdani running for? Right. Freeze the rent.
Well, that's right. And his very first ad was him jumping into the beach. I think he's in the water. I think the beach at Coney Island with a three-piece suit on, saying, I'm freezing the rent. Very, sort of cutesy stuff there. And so, Bobby, when we see Zohran Mamdani say, I've got a mandate to move forward, you've looked at the numbers, you've looked at the maps. Is that justified? To say that at least I'm a leader of the Democratic Party in New York City?
Yeah, I mean, certainly more so than if we had seen the kind of scenario play out tonight that I think maybe a lot of us were expecting to play out, which is that we would see a very close race, right? And maybe we would see Andrew Cuomo with a 2-point lead, a 4-point lead, but it would be up in the air which way it was going to go. And then maybe a week from now, maybe Zohran Mamdani ends up in the lead. He ends up overtaking Andrew Cuomo once all the ranked choice votes are redistributed. That would have been a very different conversation. He would not have been able to claim some sort of mandate in the way that I think he can plausibly claim now with a 7-point lead on Andrew Cuomo in a race that he was never supposed to win or even really be close to winning in the first place. And we looked at the borough breakdown. I mean, he did better. I think we're going to, find once we look more closely at the numbers that he probably outperformed expectations almost across the board in the city. And so that's the reason we are having these conversations about what this says about the direction of the Democratic Party writ large, because it was such a resounding victory. I think if this had been a narrower victory or a narrower victory that, only came to fruition a week from now when they ran the ranked choice tabulation, I think we would be having a different sort of conversation. But the people have not only spoken, they have spoken loudly. I mean, this is a resounding victory for Zohran Mamdani. And again, not one that I think any of us were really predicting before 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay, let's go back to Bernadette Hogan at Zohran Mamdani campaign headquarters, where she's got, well, it looks like Brad Lander there. Go ahead, Bern.
Hey there, Errol. So I'm right now with City Comptroller Brad Lander, who earlier spoke at his own watch party, who also ranked Zohran Mamdani on his ballot. Talk to me about how you're feeling about your race, and as we await for Mamdani to come out and speak to supporters.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible night for New York City. It's remarkable that people are so hungry for a more hopeful vision of the city. Rejecting Andrew Cuomo, electing Zohran. I feel really proud of the race that we ran, and especially the ways in which our cross-endorsement helped unleash a kind of, I don't know, team sport politics that says rather than just like one person's selfish vision, it could be a hopeful vision for the future of the city.
So you think that your candidacy, your campaign helped him, because he's been criticized, right, on the inexperienced end. You have been in the city council, you've held citywide office. Do you think that maybe your experience helped do a little bit of math to assist with his own, two-term assembly tenure?
I mean, look, Zohran Mamdani ran an incredible campaign. Let's give him the props for what he did tonight. And I was proud to partner with him in the cross-endorsement, which was a way of saying you can bring together that progressive vision and the experience and build something together that has a chance to really make this a city all New Yorkers can afford.
So what do you think has to be done now over the next couple of weeks? We have Eric Adams, who's on the independent line. You work intimately with him and often criticizing him as a city comptroller. What's some advice that you have for Mamdani the next couple of weeks?
Well, look, this is a resounding victory, and that helps a lot getting ready for the general, because obviously he needs to bring people together to consolidate the Democratic Party. I hope the labor unions that supported Cuomo will quickly sign on and support him and say, this is the path forward. We're done with Eric Adams. We're done with Andrew Cuomo. And that all Democrats will come together and help Zohran win in November, and then help him govern come January.
There's been a lot of analysis, right, about what's going on with the Democratic Party. Mamdani himself has said, listen, to quote him, we're tired of the politics of old. Did Democrats, were they just out of touch? What kind of failure would you say, or if any, would you place on the party itself or establishment Democrats, I suppose?
I mean, this was such a campaign between a hopeful vision of the future and a sort of dark, sour politics of the past. And people said, we want that vision of the future. We want someone who will fight. I think in many ways, the line isn't between progressives and moderates. It's between fighters and folders. And Zohran showed project a hopeful vision, bring people together around it. Now we got to win in the fall so that he can deliver it as mayor.
Now, you were one of two Jewish candidates in the race, and over the past 2 weeks, the issue of many political questions surrounding Israel and what's going on in the East, very painful for both sides, have come up, and you yourself disagreed with some of Mamdani's own statements. Are there any lessons that he can learn from this now as he is preparing to run a more, I suppose, it's for the general election, so more of a general election, how he can maybe change or alter his outreach to Jewish voters? What would you tell him to do?
I mean, it's important for a mayor to bring New Yorkers together across lines of difference. We're New Yorkers, we don't agree on a lot of different things. And boy, since October 7th and right now in general, these are tough issues, and I do feel them personally. But I believe with a real sense of shared humanity, with a commitment to keeping Jews safe and Muslims safe and all New Yorkers safe, this is an opportunity for New York to lead the way. And I'm looking forward to helping him build those bridges, show that he'll keep Jewish New Yorkers safe, and that he'll bring all New Yorkers together.
So you're the top money manager for the city. So you have dealt intimately also with Albany. He is an Albany State Assemblyman. Governor Kathy Hochul has already said some of his proposals, his largest one, raising taxes on the wealthy, would be dead on arrival. How do you think Mamdani's policies to change housing and affordability will be successful? All these promises, right? Fast and free buses. Again, just the tax issue. A lot of this has to do with state issues that as the mayor, you really aren't in control of.
Well, look, there's a lot New York City can do on its own. keeping rents down in rent-stabilized units, letting people know about their rights under rent stabilization or under good cause eviction protection, upzoning, as he said, that he wants to do to build more housing. And then, yes, there are things that will take more resources for Albany. I joked that the winner of this campaign months ago was New Yorkers United for Childcare, who are running a statewide campaign to win more resources in Albany that are absolutely necessary in order to expand childcare. But that's a win-win-win. And so I hope the legislature and the governor will think what a great opportunity to expand childcare to every 2-year-old and 3-year-old all across the state. I really think this can be a winning issue for Democrats.
And just lastly, is he going to hire you? Are you going to join his city hall?
I mean, he's got a mandate for change.
He'll be out of a job, so.
It's going to take a lot of hands to build, and I'm here to help however I can.
City Comptroller Brad Lander, thank you so much for joining us. Tell your pal to get out here. It's getting a little late, and New York One is live. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, Errol, right there we heard from Brad Lander, who was at his own watch party trying to clinch the Democratic nomination. Instead, now he is at Zoran Mamdani's campaign, where he did cross-endorse in the race, and no promises yet if he will join him in City Hall should Mamdani end up being successful in the final counting of ballots. But again, we're waiting for Mamdani to come out here in Queens.
Okay, we will be standing by. Thank you very much for that, Bern. And Courtney, the transition period, you know, I mean, I guess it's not too early to start talking about it, because we know for a fact that Mamdani and the people around him are talking about it tonight, going into tomorrow. Questions about his assembly seat, all kinds of questions are now on the table.
Yeah, I mean, they need to start thinking about November. I mean, they can take a victory lap, and as they should. You know, this is a clearly, I don't know if we can say unprecedented, but certainly showing how much grassroots support and what kind of movement and organization they had throughout the entire city, and the volunteers and the door knocking. I mean, they proved themselves to be quite the political organization. But this is not it. And, you know, we don't want to poo-poo his victory and, you know, allow him to take the victory lap. You know, there's so many items, part of his agenda or part of him as a person that we haven't even talked about. And we've generally, you know, the first Muslim major candidate to win a Democratic Party nomination. I mean, that is huge for the hundreds of thousands of Muslims here in New York City, the South Asian population, such a huge victory from them. But this is not a guarantee. Eric Adams, I was just on X looking at his X feed or Twitter feed or whatever you want to call it. He's out there tweeting, talking about he is the one with the record. He's the one that's doing the jobs. He's the one, or doing the job. He's the one that's gotten jobs up and crime down. And he's expected to have a kickoff rally sometime this week where we get to know which ballot line he runs on. I mean, this is going to be a very real race, and good for New Yorkers because you get a real contrast in these candidates. Curtis Lewa, the Republican nominee, is also out there tweeting about how you shouldn't have a radical in City Hall. I mean, these narratives are going to be out there.
So what you're saying is, with less money than Andrew Cuomo had, they're going to repeat the same messaging and expect it to work.
I don't know. We have to wait and see. I mean, we were on before with our political panel, and Stu Lozer, who is the press secretary for Mike Bloomberg for a number of years and obviously tied in with the business community, was telling me just, you know, an hour ago that within the break that we had in our coverage, he was fielding 3 phone calls from people in the business community. I can't say that they were panicked. I don't know the tenor of those phone calls. I wasn't on them, but there was so much money poured into Andrew Cuomo. We don't know specifically whether Andrew Cuomo will continue on through November. I mean, the statement that his campaign released tonight is saying that he has already qualified for the November ballot, so we'll see if he ends up mounting some sort of campaign. But there's tons of money out there that is going to be directed at someone, and who's it going to be directed at?
Yeah, well, I mean, one would hope, Bobby, because of that, maybe they would have their money support something, be in favor of something, as opposed to attacking all the time. Because as we just learned tonight, it doesn't really work.
Right. I mean, you look at the spending, and I know, Courtney, you've been looking at this closely, just the spending that was going in to fix the city, this outside group, super PAC, whatever you want to call it, that was pouring money into these ads just over the past couple of weeks, you know, basically assaulting Zoran Mamdani. And in the end, I don't know what that money bought. I mean, did that make any marginal difference in the final vote count? It certainly didn't seem to help Andrew Cuomo much, considering the fact that he underperformed pretty much everyone's expectations in this race. So, I mean, I don't know whether that has any impact on the general election and the way that people choose to spend their money. I mean, you're talking about how they had more money to spend than Eric Adams is. I mean, Eric Adams is, he's in debt, right? He has a lot of money that he has to pay back before he can even start to amass the kind of campaign war chest that he's going to need to run an effective race in November. And then, you know, what is Zohran Mamdani? He's probably going to have an easier time raising money for the general election than he did raising money for the primary. And we know he was able to raise money at a historic pace in the primary. So, I mean, all indicators are pointing in the right direction for Zohran Mamdani. It seems that everything that was thrown against him just didn't manage to stick. None of those attack lines seem to work. Really, in the end, I mean, in hindsight, it seems like he ran a perfectly effective campaign. I mean, I can't look back and see that there were any missteps in the Zohran Mamdani campaign that's really set him back at all.
You know, while you're there, as we're waiting for Zohran Mamdani to give a speech, and we'll bring that to you live when it comes up, let's look at some numbers. What can you show us of the city council races that we've been following throughout the night?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier, we didn't really see a lot of upsets tonight. We didn't see a lot of incumbent council members who were unseated or at least knocked off in the primary, which we do see occasionally. I mean, it's not typical to see a lot of incumbent council members or incumbent lawmakers on any level of government, quite frankly, lose their jobs. I mean, it does happen occasionally, but we thought that there might be some tough races tonight. And if we want to kind of begin to draw a narrative from this, we saw that there were a lot of more left-leaning progressive council makers affiliated with the DSA, with the Democratic Socialists of America, who might have been in trouble because they were facing challenges from the right, from more moderate candidates. I mean, we saw this in City Council District 1, which I don't think we've really taken a look at tonight, but this is Christopher Marte, who had a few challengers in his race. We thought this could potentially be close. He ended up winning by, 25 points in this race. This will still go to ranked choice, but clearly he's going to emerge as the winner in that race. And, you know, I'm thinking of a couple other races. Earlier we mentioned Shahana Hanif in Brooklyn in District 39. This is Brownstone, Brooklyn, Carroll Gardens, Park Slope, Windsor Terrace. She was facing a challenge from a woman named Maya Kornberg, and it seemed like it was going to be an issue in this race that Shahana Hanif had these very vocal pro-Palestinian opinions, and, you know, she had really spent a lot of time on activist causes that people thought were taking away from constituent services, making her ineffective as a city lawmaker. And then she ends up winning this race by 43 points. So it turned out she wasn't really in trouble at all. And then I think it was a really similar story that played out in District 38 in Brooklyn. This is Red Hook and Sunset Park. This is Alexa Aviles. She had a challenge from a much more moderate Democrat, Ling Yi, and it was thought that she might be in trouble. And here again, I mean, look at the split here. This is, what, 44 points. So none of these candidates, left-leaning candidates that we thought might be in trouble, ended up in trouble at all. In many cases, they ended up winning by landslides. And all of those men we talked about earlier trying to make political comebacks, Anthony Weiner certainly failed in his attempt. We didn't talk about Reuben Wills, former city council member who was actually running for his old seat in Adrian Adams' district, Council Speaker Adrian Adams' district. He finished a distant fourth, I believe. I don't think we've actually looked at this race either. Reuben Wills down here, yeah, finishing fourth with 14%. In this race, Fernando Cabrera, also trying to make a political comeback in the Bronx. He fell short, fell well short in his race as well. So, you know, I don't think we saw moderate Democrats making any gains, which was kind of a sense that people maybe had given what we saw back in November when we saw voters across the city make this sort of rightward shift in the presidential election. That has not materialized tonight.
Could you take a look at District 8 in Manhattan? That was the East Harlem seat where, because of term limits, there was going to be a vacancy. And I remember there was a pretty crowded race. It included Raymond Santana, one of the exonerated five, and somebody who was trying to follow in the footsteps of one of his fellow exoneree. How did that race turn out?
Raymond Santana. This race got a lot of attention because of Raymond Santana. He was trying to join Yusuf Salaam, a fellow member of the exonerated Central Park 5. Yusuf Salaam was elected to the council 2 years ago in an adjacent district, actually, but Raymond Santana never really caught a lot of traction in this race. He jumped in kind of late to this race, didn't manage to raise a lot of money. He'd also really hadn't moved back to New York City until recently. So Raymond Santana ended up pretty far down the board, 4th place. Elsie Encarnacion ended up in 1st place in this race. She was actually chief of staff to Diana Ayala, who is the outgoing council member. She was term limited out of office. This could be another one that could maybe get shaken up a little bit in the ranked choice process. But right now, Encarnacion looks like she has a pretty comfortable lead here. She had a lot of institutional support from electeds, from unions, from advocacy groups. But Raymond Santana falling well short in this one. A lot of candidates in this one. This was a pretty hard-fought, crowded race, which we saw in a lot of these open seats across the board.
Okay, and so, Courtney, when we see the new government assemble in January, all eyes will be on what happens on the west side of City Hall, but the City Council will also be a place where there's going to be change afoot, right? They're going to need a new City Council speaker, for one thing.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what happens with the women majority. I mean, that was one of the things that Adrienne Adams talks a lot about on the campaign trail, is that she became the first female black speaker of the City Council. In addition, she is leading a women majority City Council for the first time in its history. So I know, it's late, it's about midnight. We're still going to have to crunch the numbers, obviously, through this Democratic primary and obviously through the ranked choice, and we'll see where the new council goes. I mean, if Zohran Mamdani at the top of the ticket is an indicator of anything, and one might consider or think that this is a backlash, obviously, to the presidential election last year. We thought that maybe people would tick more moderate and people would go with an Andrew Cuomo, who is talking about crime and trying to bring New York City back to the center. But if voters are turning out for Zohran Mamdani and electing Zohran Mamdani, then what will the rest of the ticket, what will the down ballot races look like? What will the right side, not the left side of City Hall, end up looking like? And my bet is that it's going to be probably pretty progressive, in which it already has been incredibly progressive as it stands already. I mean, they've had many clashes, this City Council, with the other side of City Hall in the form of Mayor Eric Adams, whether it's over policing legislation, legislation to have solitary or to ban solitary confinement in New York City jails, and whether you should increase the number of housing vouchers for homeless families. And those have all been clashes that we've seen with this City Council and this particular mayor.
Right. And, it also bears mentioning that there are going to be a lot of pressing issues that land on the desk of both the next mayor and the next council. I'm thinking of the takeover of Rikers Island.
Absolutely.
The receivership that has never happened before. Nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be something, front and center on day one.
Yeah, so we are waiting, obviously, to get a recommendation from the judge. There will be the parties, this judge came out with this monumental decision, having the decision to appoint a receiver to oversee New York City jails. It's only happened about a dozen other times in this country, and we're really in, you can't say entirely uncharted territory, because it's happened in other areas like California, for instance, but certainly in New York City, it's uncharted, and we don't know what that's going to look like. There will continue to be a commissioner at the city's Department of Correction, but come August, there's going to be recommendations in federal court about who this federal receiver should be, who will be appointed by the judge, and who will be in charge and have control of Rikers Island. Not only will that person be in charge of Rikers Island, but there's obviously a plan on the table. Rikers Island is supposed to close in August of 2027, and even in our debate, that was hosted on a couple of weeks ago, all of the candidates acknowledged on that stage that that deadline is not going to be met. So the next mayor will not only have to deal with the receiver and that tricky balancing act of allowing a receiver to basically run Rikers Island, but also put in place how you're going to close it, because these jails, the borough-based jails that have been billions of dollars in city contracts to build, they're not going to be done until 2030, 2031, potentially 2032.
And Bobby, it strikes me that in some ways Donald Trump was not absent from this race, right? We saw it in the debates that we held. We saw it in a lot of the council races. everyone was saying we have to Trump-proof New York City. We have to fight back. We have to figure this out. That really probably skewed who was energized, who wanted to come out, and who ultimately voted and gave us the outcomes that we saw today.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways you could see the results as a reaction to the Trump effect. But, you know, I'm thinking specifically about the Mamdani race, and he did not make Donald Trump front and center, right? I mean, he stuck to economic issues, to cost of living issues. He didn't make this about White House policy. Now, it varied by race and varied by office. I mean, I'm also thinking about the city comptroller's race, and that is a position where you're dealing with the city's finances, you're dealing with potentially huge cuts in federal money flowing to New York City. And so that's going to be a primary concern as part of your job description. So we heard Justin Brannan and Mark Levine both making that front and center in their campaigns, how they were going to fight back against the Trump administration as they attacked New York City. And then, of course, in the mayor's race, you know, you saw this conversation about who was going to be best equipped to stand up to Donald Trump. I mean, that was, you know, one of the arguments we heard from Andrew Cuomo. He was the one who was going to stand up to Trump. You remember that in the debate, of course, on New York One a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Cuomo said, or maybe it was in the earlier debate when he first sort of was confronted by the other candidates on the same stage, and he said of Zohran Mamdani, Donald Trump is going to cut through him like a hot knife through butter. He was basically saying that, you know, he wasn't built to stand up to Trump. And so that was part of the dialogue during the mayoral race, but it wasn't something that we heard Mamdani really zero in on. And so I wonder if maybe that was part of the appeal of his message, that it was so narrowly focused on affordability and cost of living and people's economic concerns, that, you know, that idea of being able to stand up to Trump, even though polls have shown that that's something that they want out of their mayor, it wasn't something that he really made the focus of his campaign. And of course, in the general election, that's going to be part of the conversation again because of this sort of unique place that Eric Adams occupies right now, where the perception, at least, is that, you know, he is basically in thrall to the Trump administration because they managed to engineer the federal corruption case against him being dropped. And so there's a feeling that, if anything, Eric Adams is sort of collaborating with the Trump administration. And so we could see that become part of the conversation as well.
Okay. On the right side of your screen, folks, is the campaign manager for the Zohran Mamdani campaign. When the candidate comes up, we will bring that to you live. I see they have a teleprompter there, suggesting that they're going to be speaking to more than just the handful of people there on the roof. This will be a speech beamed out, I think, to a national audience, it's safe to say. We're hearing from reaction from a lot of different sources, Courtney.
Yep, so we're just getting a tweet in, or an X in, whatever we call it nowadays, from Governor Kathy Hochul, who we should note did not weigh in on the race. There was some speculation behind the scenes that she had encouraged Adrienne Adams to run, but there was never any clear confirmation. She never went out and backed Adrienne Adams for this race, but she's tweeting tonight, quote, "Today, voters made their voices heard, demanding a more affordable, more livable New York City. I hear them loud and clear. Zohran Mamdani built a formidable grassroots coalition, and I look forward to speaking with him in the days ahead about his ideas on how to ensure a safe, affordable, and livable New York City." And that just makes me think, you know, there were so many elected officials who endorsed Andrew Cuomo. And, you know, in the beginning of the night, sure, State Senator John Liu was at the Mamdani party, and Brad Lander is at the Mamdani party, and Jumaane Williams at the Mamdani party, but there is a whole lot of elected officials who lined up, even though they called for Andrew Cuomo to resign several years ago. There were many, many, many of them who lined up behind him. Do they automatically endorse the Democratic nominee? We don't know as of this point.
If you were the county chair of Brooklyn, which Mamdani won, or Queens, which Mamdani won, or Manhattan, which Mamdani won, I'm trying to imagine the process by which those people would now turn around and say, you know, sorry, we're not with you.
There's hundreds of thousands of people who clearly said Mamdani is our candidate. We want him to be the Democratic nominee. Do you go with him? In addition to all the elected officials who you can say maybe wouldn't make that much of a difference, considering they clearly didn't do anything for Andrew Cuomo. But 32 BJ, massive union, $11.99. very big union.
Teamsters, 237.
Andrew Cuomo locked up so much of the union support here in New York City. What does this say about their ability to organize nowadays, their ability to knock on doors, get people out? HTC, these are unions in addition that also backed, 32BJ, DC 37, HTC, the Hotel and Casino Workers Union. These are unions that backed Eric Adams in 2021. I'm not going to say that they're going to turn around and start backing Eric Adams now, but perhaps they are free and clear to do so. We'll see if they end up backing the Democratic
Well, yeah, they're going to have to make a choice, right? I mean, what will often happen in this case, because, like, look, let's make no bones about it. A lot of the leaders of these county organizations and of these unions have been embarrassed, right? That they were not able to deliver. They were not able to deliver their members. They were not able to deliver the party. They were not able to deliver the endorsement or make the endorsement successful. They're going to have to do a cleanup mission, and that might involve sort of running to the probable winner and saying, hey, we did it, or let's let bygones be bygones, and let's make something new going forward. And then, of course, there were a lot of unions that stood on the sidelines. For all of his talk about law and order, Andrew Cuomo did not have law enforcement unions support.
No, that's right. The PBA stayed out. In addition, the UFT, the teachers, there used to be 5 big unions we always talked about, came to mayoral races or even governor's races. And that was, of course, the Building Service Workers, 32BJ, 1199, DC 37, the Municipal Workers Union.
The cops and the teachers.
Exactly. And the teachers, for one, just decided to stay on the sidelines completely. I wouldn't expect Mamdani to be all of a sudden be getting the PBA support.
Let's go to Mamdani headquarters, where Nydia Velasquez is about to speak.
We want to hear from Zoran, so thank you so much. I am just so proud of all of you for the work that you put together to get to this moment and to work so hard for the city that we all love. So let me just say, hello, Long Island City. What a night. This campaign has shocked the world. But everyone in this room knew we were going to do it. You believed in this movement when the pundits said it couldn't be done. You knocked on doors, made calls, talked to neighbors, and tonight, we made history. Zoran Mamdani brought people from every background together around a simple, powerful idea that New York City should be a city for everyone. Not just the wealthy, not just the well-connected. Everyone. He spoke to the struggles we all see: rising rents, crumbling public services, working families barely hanging on, and he gave us something real to believe in. There is not special formula here. It's about listening to our people, to our community, and putting together a vision for the future of this city. You know what? The billionaires are watching this moment. And they are going to spend everything they got to stop Zoran. Why? Because they know that this campaign threatens business as usual, and they are scared. So tonight we celebrate, but tomorrow we got back to work. We are going to knock even more doors. We are going to organize in every borough. We are going to turn this people power victory into a movement that takes us all the way to City Hall. And together, we are going to elect Zoran as the next mayor of New York and change our city forever. But this is the thing. The city has changed. Zoran knew it. Other candidates didn't see it. And that is why we are here celebrating this incredible moment. God bless you all.
So, my name is Tish James, and I come from... Is Brooklyn in the house? Listen, if I can just have your attention just for 2 minutes, and then we're going to bring on the candidate. Just 2 minutes, and I'll be gone. Just listen. All throughout my public career, I have rejected the politics of fear, the politics of division, the politics of hate, the bias of low expectations. And Zoran, all throughout this campaign, rejected all of that as well. He kept focused on his message. He wasn't concerned about the money. It was all about the power of the message, the power of his word. And so I saw in my beloved Brooklyn and all throughout this city that this campaign was fueled. It was fueled by the power of people. People yearning for change in this city. People who heard his message. And we all came together. And I want those who are listening, who came to me, who called me, who texted me, who emailed me, who were afraid. I want all of you to know that after this campaign is over, we will all come together. We will heal this city. And I want all of you to know that you need to understand that Zoran is really a man who respects the humanity of everyone. The primary is now over. It's over. And tonight, we celebrate the victory. Tonight represents a resounding win. His critics said that he should wait his turn. His critics said that he didn't have the experience. His critics said that he didn't have the right name. Well, now all of them know his goddamn name.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my friends. Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City. An hour ago, I spoke with Andrew Cuomo about the need to bring this city together as he called me to concede the race. And I want to thank Brad Lander. Who did exactly that. Together we have shown the power of the politics of the future. One of partnership and of sincerity.
Zoran, let's hear it.
Today, 8 months after launching this campaign, with the vision of a city that every New Yorker could afford, we have won. We have won from Harlem to Bay Ridge. We have won from Jackson Heights to Port Richmond. We have won from Maspeth to Chinatown. We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. A city where they can do more than just struggle. One where those who toil in the night can enjoy the fruits of their labor in the day. Where hard work is repaid with a stable life. Where 8 hours on the factory floor or behind the wheel of a cab is enough to pay the mortgage. It is enough to keep the lights on. It is enough to send your kid to school. Where rent-stabilized apartments are actually stabilized. Where buses are fast and free. Where childcare doesn't cost more than CUNY. And where public safety keeps us truly safe. And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism. To stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors. And to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party. A party where we fight for working people with no apology. A life of dignity should not be reserved for a fortunate few. It should be one that city government guarantees for each and every New Yorker. If this campaign has demonstrated anything to the world, It is that our dreams can become reality. Dreaming demands hope. And when I think of hope, I think of the unprecedented coalition of New Yorkers that we have built. For this is not my victory. This is ours. It is the victory of the Bangladeshi auntie who knocked on door after door until her feet throbbed and her knuckles ached. It is the victory of the 18-year-old who voted in their first ever election. And it is the victory of the Gambian uncle who finally saw himself and his struggle in a campaign for the city that he calls home. Dreaming demands solidarity. And when I look out at this room and out onto the midnight skyline, that is what I see. Canvas launches that continued in the pouring rain. Children who called parents. Strangers who care about those they will never meet. A New York that believes in each other and in itself. This is solidarity, and it defines our victory. And above all, dreaming demands work. Last Friday night, as the sun began to drop in the sky, I set off on a 13-mile walk from the northernmost tip of Manhattan to the base of the island. We began in Inwood, where music played and neighbors set out dominoes on the sidewalk. It was 7 p.m. The weekend had arrived. For most people, the time for work was over. But this is New York, where the work never ends. Waiters carried plates on 181st Street. Conductors drove the subways that rattled high above 125th. And world-class musicians tuned instruments as we passed Lincoln Square. By the time we made it downtown, a crowd marched behind us, a living embodiment of the energy and purpose that defines this campaign. Still, long past midnight, New York worked. Garbage trucks weaved through empty streets. Fishmongers carried in tomorrow's wares. And when we finally arrived at the Battery at 2:20 a.m. in the morning, the workers who run the Staten Island Ferry were on the job too. Just as they are every hour of the day, every day of the week. Each of these New Yorkers carried a dream with them that night as they labored. Just as each of us dreams of a New York that is more hopeful and affordable for all. And we have worked hard for our dream. This has been a historically contentious race. One that has filled our airwaves with millions in smears and slander. I hope now that this primary has come to an end. I can introduce myself once more. Not as you've seen me in a 30-second ad or in a mailer in your mailbox, but as how I will lead as your mayor. I will be the mayor for every New Yorker. Whether you voted for me, for Governor Cuomo, or felt too disillusioned by a long, broken political system to vote at all, I will fight for a city that works for you, that is affordable for you, that is safe for you. I will work to be a mayor you will be proud to call your own. I cannot promise that you will always agree with me, but I will never hide from you. If you are hurting, I will try to heal. If you feel misunderstood, I will strive to understand. Your concerns will always be mine, and I will put your hopes before my own. And I know that those hopes extend beyond our 5 boroughs. There are millions of New Yorkers who have strong feelings about what happens overseas. I am one of them. And while I will not abandon my beliefs or my commitments, grounded in a demand for equality, for humanity, for all those who walk this earth, you have my word to reach further, to understand the perspectives of those with whom I disagree, and to wrestle deeply with those disagreements. Let me close with this. In these dark times, I know that it is harder than ever to keep faith in our democracy. It has been attacked by billionaires and their big spending, by elected officials who care more about self-enrichment than the public trust, and by authoritarian leaders who rule through fear. But above all, our democracy has been attacked from within. For too long, New Yorkers have strained to find a leader who represents us, who puts us first. And we have been betrayed time and again. After so many disappointments, the heart hardens. Belief becomes elusive. And when we no longer believe in our democracy, it only becomes easier for people like Donald Trump to convince us of his worth. For billionaires to convince us that they must always lead. As FDR said, democracy has disappeared in several other great nations. Not because the people disliked democracy, but because they had grown tired of unemployment and insecurity, of seeing their children hungry while they sat helpless in the face of government confusion and weakness. In desperation, they chose to sacrifice liberty in the hope of getting something to eat. New York, if we have made one thing clear over these past months, it is that we need not choose between the two. We can be free and we can be fed. We can demand what we deserve. And together we have built a movement where everyday New Yorkers recognize themselves in our vision of democracy. Every new voter registered, that is faith renewed. Every voter who traveled through withering heat to the polls, that is faith renewed. And every New Yorker who sees solutions to the daily challenges they face in this campaign, that is faith renewed. Together, New York, we have renewed our democracy. We have given our city permission to believe again. And I pledge to you that we will remake this great city, not in my image, but in the image of every New Yorker who has only known struggle. In our New York, the power belongs to the people. And as I thank the people that are here with me today, and as I thank the incredible leaders who have long fought for those people, who are here across this crowd and across these 5 boroughs and standing next to me in the Attorney General of this state, in the public advocate of this city, in our Congresswoman, Nydia Velasquez, in our controller, Brad Lander, and in every single person who believed in this campaign long before it was easy to do so. And you believed when it was difficult. We dreamt in the night, and we are now building in the dawn. That new day, the one that we have yearned for, the one that we have struggled for, the one that we have knocked for, have texted for, have called for, the one that we have obsessed over. That new day is finally here, my friends. And it is here because you have delivered it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And as I thank you, I must thank those who brought me into this world. I must thank my mother and my father, Mira and Mahmoud, and I must thank and I must thank my incredible wife, Rama Duaji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let us lead this city into one that is affordable for each and every New Yorker.
Zoran Mamdani delivering a speech to the assembled.
That wraps up C-SPAN's live coverage of the Democratic Party primary for New York City mayor. A winner may not emerge for a week because of the city's ranked choice voting, which allows voters to list up to 5 candidates in order of preference. If no candidate receives more than 50% of first choice votes, candidates with the fewest votes are eliminated over several rounds, with their votes transferred to the next ranked choice until a winner is declared. The winner of the Democratic primary will go on to face incumbent Mayor Eric Adams, a Democrat who decided to run as an independent after he was indicted on corruption charges. Guardian Angels founder and radio talk show host Curtis Sliwa is the Republican nominee.